Let me send you the. I'll send you the link from my
Oh yeah, thank you. That would be
end.
great.
Yeah, I'm just glad this is functioning now. There we go, and
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
you're
can
not.
talk. Yeah, because I was very much looking forward to
Oh
this.
wait, it is live.
Yeah, now we are. Now we
Oh,
are.
okay.
So all that stuff we said about Chairman Mao and the party. No. Okay, so that should work. So um,
Oh, you sent me the link. Thank you.
yeah.
Let me
Oh
share that.
yeah, I can do that too. Oh, this is so great. I tried to get my shit together earlier, and it just didn't happen. So um, I was just Sunday morning. It was New Year's Day. Although I didn't. I don't know what you did last night because it's New Year's Day. I didn't whoop it up. In fact, though I did stay up later than everybody else. I stayed up the latest of the household. Um,
Ah,
but all that meant was like um, the cat and I sitting, me playing video games and the cat sitting next to me. I have to admit, and I'm glad we're recording now so that I can say this for accountability. I have been so obsessively playing this game, Arc Raiders, this video game,
oh, I've read about that, but not played
that
it.
it's so good. And I don't usually play like extraction shooters like Battlefield or Call of Duty. Um, but I love this. It's funny because my daughter's boyfriend was like, you know, I haven't seen you play anything besides No Man's Sky for the last 4 years. I was like, fair enough. Um, he's like, you should try this, and I didn't get it at first, and then he showed me some things about it, and now I'm obsessed. And apparently, everybody who plays it is obsessed. Like,
Really?
yeah, it's kind of funny. So like everybody, and I watch a bunch of streamers playing, and there's several ones that are English, and and are from the UK, and they're just like, yeah, I've got nothing done. I've shirked all responsible duties. So, and I realized too why actually No Man's Sky is a good thing for me because it makes me listen to. I mean, I listen to the in-game music, but I mostly listen to other music. Um,
Oh, you don't use the soundtrack too
and
much.
I haven't been, and
Mm.
partly because Arc Raiders is you really got to pay attention because it's what's kind of amazing is like the I mean I love video games and I play I play them often. Like the sound design is superb.
Mm.
The graphics and the world design is superb. Um, Even though most like shooters like that are designed kind of around the action and the PvP stuff, um, the world building and the story and stuff is superb. And even the playing is stuff is good. It's really funny how like and Ryan the daughter's boyfriend said if you go on the European servers, like in settings, if you choose European servers, they will all just destroy you. They play like it's the siege of Stalingrad or something. And um, you said, but the American servers are pretty cool, and it's largely true. It's really interesting because it like I woke my wife up last night saying like Happy New Year to people. Not that I was like jumping up and down on the couch, but I was making enough noise for it. Um, but it's all encompassing, and there is
Mm.
nothing else but that. So yeah.
So
But
that's where
anyway,
you've been at for
yeah.
the
So
last.
but yeah, and like I'm like okay, it's I even played some this morning, and I was like okay, you really shouldn't have played. But it was funny because I was playing, and I had one headphone off, and Alice was showing me a reaction video of some guy a guy discovering that the righteous brothers were white, um, which is I always love stuff like that. But anyway, so it's taken over my life, but I'm starting to like get back to other things. Like I realize I owe your stuff a fairly an actual attentive listening. I've been very bad. Although the one you just put out on Bandcamp, I did start listening to, and I love it. It's so beautiful
Oh, you
as
mean
always.
music from a black hole?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah. I I'm glad you got it. I put it out and then I thought this timing is terrible, so I've made it private. I'm going to re-release it because
yeah.
yeah, I'm so glad you said that. It's one of my favorite pieces that I've done,
Don't
and
hide your light under a bushel, boy. Don't do that.
but I never knew when to put it out because it's
Yeah.
I'm going to re-release it. But you've got it. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people and the reason Ivor heard it and he said that's my favorite thing you've made.
Oh wow.
He,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so you're in good company. I trust you and Ivor's taste. Um,
Thank you. I appreciate. Sometimes I feel as if I don't have any, but
that sounded so, what do you call it? Overboard. It's like I'm one to dispose trust. I'm
yeah.
not an arbiter of taste. I just mean you won't tell me why have you made a 15-minute long track? It sounds like a panic attack, which is, sometimes that's what some people they don't understand panic attacks are
No.
really and they're far from my intention with that one. So
I would not.
I yeah.
I would not hear a 15-minute song and think it was inspired by a panic attack. I would
Oh
think
good, yeah.
I would think quite the opposite, that someone was enjoying a nice long languid relaxing time, and that or something. But yeah, you've got. Gosh, we. I know we said we wanted to talk about something specific here. I forget, but so you got
Just
that
music.
coming, and then when is Habitations coming out?
Avell told me Habitations is coming out on January the 20th, I
Oh,
think,
nice.
unless I misunderstood. And it's done finally. I feel for the guy. He's Alfonso is so patient because well, you've been through this too. I've sent you about 15 versions.
Yes, yes, there have been a number of alterations. Yes.
Um, but yeah, I could say frankly, Slowfoot really don't appreciate me adding tracks and changing things.
That's too bad. I
Whereas he's very, yeah, I don't take the mick though. I think this has to be it, and it really is it.
Yeah, but
No,
I
no.
understand that, because I mean, I don't think anybody who's listening who is an artist or produces anything of any degree, like, I mean, Jesus, I think Sean said they changed some stuff on one of the Yotecker albums, like something pretty recent, right up to like master.
Oh, that's good to know.
And
I didn't
that's,
know that.
yeah, yeah. I feel like he said that about something. It might have been yeah, I think it might have been some of the live shows that
Wow.
he was tweaking some of that. I could be wrong, but you're not the only one who does that. And I can, you know, I suppose I can understand a little bit. I don't know. I mean, the label's probably like, we want things done so we can put it in order. But on the
Mm.
other hand, they got to understand, they're not dealing with accountants here. You know,
Yeah, it's a
you're
different issue.
dealing with musicians, and they're funky cats.
Yeah, we're crazy. I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't reveal some kind of degree of insanity at some point in
Yeah,
one area or another.
no, it's
Oh,
true, and everybody has their little weird spot,
yeah.
and it's just
I,
so funny because everyone who says they don't, you're just like, it's in there somewhere. I
yeah,
know it is.
it's going to come out eventually.
Yeah,
Whether it's about your hi-hats or how you deal with personalities, or it
yeah,
could be musical area or the social side. I mean, at least, I don't know, at least we try to be nice to people. The worst is if a
yeah,
musician is invested in such a way that it means that they forget they're dealing with human beings, and
yeah,
I've experienced a little bit of that.
yeah, and it's. it's so interesting because I think about, I think about the concept of genius, and I think about someone like Zappa, who was just
Oh
like,
yeah.
you know, Zappa was terrifying to his musicians, but
Mm,
he also knew what he wanted.
mm.
And and oh, and it's funny. I was talking about this last time, and I got cut off, and I'm really amazed that I remembered. Although I shouldn't be because I finally got my ADHD meds back, so I'm on them anyway. Um, but like, I watched Nosferatu by Robert Eggers, and it's brilliant, of course. And um, but he's sitting in an interview between him and Willem Dafoe and Nicholas Hoult, and the interviewer says, this is hailed as a masterpiece, and you're hailed as a modern genius of a director, and he just goes, like, he just sits there and looks, and I'm like, that's about the best response you can give to that, because like, I I've known some geniuses, one or two, and they're not nice people, and they're
Interesting.
not easy people to deal with, and I think it's funny because I remember seeing a video as a kid of like of or I was younger, of child prodigies
Mm,
who grew up, and a lot of them live lives where they're a little they're kind of miserable,
mm,
and you know some of them, not all of them do, but some of them end up doing that, and I think part of it is because they have they have such a specific vision, and they're so devoted, like they only want to do that thing. Like
mm.
there's that singular drive. Like Prince, I did not know Prince, but Prince was a genius. But
Yeah.
Prince was not an easy guy to deal with.
Yeah, I've been reading about that too. Both
And
Zappa and Prince, weirdly.
yeah, Zappa and Prince were. I mean, Bowie for that matter too. One of my one of my favorite stories, a friend said, was he was getting into a cab with Bowie and someone else, and they were talking, and somebody mentioned, either Bowie or something mentioned Gary Newman, and my friend was like, "Oh, I like Gary Newman," and Bowie's like, "Ugh, really?" And I said, if I'd been there, I would have said, "Well, you should like him because Trent Reznor saved his and your careers."
That's true.
I mean, he really did. Trent Reznor really, Bowie probably would have picked up on his own, but Trent Reznor really picked him up in the '90s. And I think it's just like Bobby Fischer, perfect example, crazy person.
Mm,
And and I think it's not easy growing up or living with that sort of vision unless you are sort of surrounded by people who are going to kind of yes men or kowtow you,
mm.
or you just accept that it's that way. And I've also met nice geniuses like the writer George Saunders. I met.
Yeah.
Um,
I have too. I mean, Messiaen,
yeah.
not to shoehorn a completely different area, but I was really heartwarmed to read that the reason Xenakis didn't give up was because he studied with Messiaen and everyone else had been extremely critical and all
Ah.
the all the sniping you'd expect. Yeah, it's in this. Okay, I'll get the book quick. It's really
Yeah.
good. Do you recommend this book? It's can't see it, but
Please. Yeah. Now, if
I'm
you
gonna
hold it a
say her
little
name.
closer to the screen,
I'm
our
gonna say her
massive
name wrong.
viewership.
Is that working?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, this is really good to read.
I love Xenakis. The more and more I've grown to just really love, um, like get Xenakis and just appreciate him, and also appreciate sort of his humanness, if that makes sense.
That's true. I mean, he was tricky. He's a tricky character himself,
Oh
but
yeah.
in the book, I learned that Messiaen, who was a big encouragement for him, was incredibly kind to people, and I regard him as Messiaen as a genius
Yeah.
personally. He expressed his genius, like you said, more like what was that author's name? Sanders, is that who you
Yeah.
mentioned?
Saunders. Yeah.
That's cool. You met him. Nice.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. We my brother and I, years ago, we were here at a in Portland, in Maine, there was an event for food writers, and food writing. And there was like some significant. It's interesting because Portland, the big city I'm near, has had a really big jump. Well, had a big jump, kind of, especially during COVID, of new restaurants opening.
Mm.
And like we got, it's one is owned by my like cousins by marriage, so I don't eat free there, but it's they at least know to wave at me. Um, but there was all this food writing, and one of them was this guy Mike Paternity, and Meredith Goad, who writes for the Portland Press Herald. I think she writes some stuff for the New York Times. Mike Paternity, who wrote the book about traveling with Einstein's brain. He's a fantastic writer, but he also wrote this one about um, this particular kind of cheese he'd eaten, and his whole story of going to find it in rural Spain in this farmland. A fascinating story. And then George Saunders wrote something too. I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, Mike Paternity gets up there and he starts talking to my brother and I, because we're like this. We both get up and shout at him, New Canaan sucks. And everyone's like, what? And Mike's like, huh? And then he starts laughing. We all come from the same town, Mike Paternity, my brother and I. And New Canaan is the next town over, made famous in the movie The Ice Storm, by the way. Um, and New Canaan was our famous rival, so Mike really loved that. But later, I got to meet George Saunders, super nice guy. But like but reading some of his stuff, you're just like,
How do you put those together?
yeah, well, no, like you can just tell his brain is operating at a level that a lot of people probably don't get, and
Oh, I see. Yeah.
it will take a while to really, a few reads to get through like a certain piece of his work and like understand kind of where that is, where he's truly coming from, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
That's what we're talking about because I
yeah,
know loads of people have an issue with the word genius. I get it,
yeah,
but there are pieces you come across where it's operating on a whole other level. Like
yeah, and
it's quite
it's
clear in literature, actually. You're right. That's almost more obvious because music is so undefinable and it's an expanding category. And
yeah,
I would argue it happens in all areas, but literature, like I bang on about Middlemarch.
oh yeah,
I tried to
and
get a friend to read that, and they found it so boring. But really, when I read a certain kind of book like that, I think this brain is, I could never do that.
yeah,
The way she's conceiving of character and psychology and
yeah,
mapping the whole work. Yes, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of effort and time consuming and all the rest. But there is something else, like a zing of inspiration and
yeah.
insight going on that is just beyond sheer effort.
It really is. It's like it's an insight into, I want to say, the divine, and sort of an insight into the universe that
Mm,
others won't maybe see so readily.
mm,
And I think a lot of art is sort of interpreting what we see, be it writing or music or visual arts. Like it's interpreting what we perceive. And with someone like that, it's like you're kind of like, okay, I got to hold on. It's going to be a wild ride, like like Otek, or like something like um, like Buto dance, like that
mm.
stuff. The Japanese dance. The
Oh
um,
yeah, I didn't know what you meant for a moment.
oh, that's I've loved it since I saw it when I was 14.
Mm,
I saw some on there was a show here in the States called Friday Night Videos that ran from like 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. and it showed like tons of stuff that you wouldn't see normally, like an Einstürzende Neubauten performance.
mm.
And this is like 84 or something. So this is like, you know, still like them like getting chased out of East Germany and shit. Or they would run whole episodes of the Some Bizarre Show. Um, so I'd see like weird videos of all sorts, but like Cabaret Voltaire videos I'd never seen. And anyway, Friday Night Videos had um, oh, I think it was part of the Einstürzende Neubauten thing was Buto dancers, and then I read about them elsewhere, and it just the whole being painted in white and the whole um, presentation of it, and then when I met Alice, my wife, she was a dancer, and she studied at a number of like dance studios. She was not in the company of, say, Merce Cunningham, but she studied there, and like she would occasionally ride the elevator with him or John Cage, which was like, oh,
Oh,
amazing. But
yeah.
I saw oh, but Sankai Juku was this Buto group that she studied with, and she always talked about Amagatsu Sensei, the leader. And so one year we got to go see a performance of it in Boston, and it was just it was truly otherworldly. And I realized that like I was not getting. I felt like I wasn't getting about 90% of it, but I was enjoying it 100%.
Mm.
And it's funny because I have a story about myself that my tastes are pedestrian, and that my scope of reference is small and provincial, and that I'm not able to get these lofty concepts and shit, which I know is kind of bullshit. I'm absolutely not saying I'm a genius, though I'm a difficult person. But the two are not mutually linked, nor they're mutually exclusive. But I remember seeing that and just being like, I am in the presence of something else entirely, and
Mm.
all I can do is witness and hope to keep up. And it was really fascinating. It was after the performance going to meet um, Amagatsu Sensei and someone else that Alice knew, and they were so happy to see her, but they couldn't hug her because they were still covered in the white stuff. And just like talking to them, and you notice, oh, they're wearing a loincloth and they have little bits of bright red and green fuzz taped to their ears, like for the show. I don't know why. It was like, but oh, that was so amazing. And yeah, just realizing that like I think when you encounter something like that, especially in like a performance or some public presentation, being at a reading or something, it's like I think either you don't get it and it eludes you and you're like, this is boring as shit, or you get it and hopefully you're like, you get it a little bit and you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. I just remember we fell asleep during the Buto performance, and I felt bad. I didn't want to tell Alice, but later she's like, oh, I fell asleep. I said, me too. She said, but it wasn't like sleep. It felt as if like the the performance, the whole place kind of evanesced to something else. So there was nothing. There was no more Wang Theater in Boston outside of us. It was just this group of people seated watching these people on stage, dance and do strange movements. It was really profound.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, but it it's funny too. Just the thing on genius. I think I read somewhere. I think someone called it like the burden of genius,
Mm.
and a little bit I think it is because sometimes I think people, once if when something very easily comes to you and it doesn't to others, I think some folks don't see it as like it's what do you call it? Um, like other people are stupid because they don't get it. When in fact it's like no, like you you may be doing something that is not easy for other human beings to like remotely comprehend. and
Yeah,
being able to see that and stuff is it's kind of interesting, you know.
yeah. And my friends who find the stuff boring that I share, I certainly don't think it's because they're not seeing and I'm seeing.
Yeah,
It's more that they require certain categories of relevance to like the times. Because George
yeah,
Eliot is a Victorian author, so I get it. Why is a story about a provincial town where nothing really happens interesting?
yeah.
So my friends are just as smart as me and mostly smarter, but I've
I
got,
find that hard to believe, frankly. You're a
but
pretty smart guy.
I guess we have weird brains that ignore the massive detail we don't get and get locked into some
Yeah,
kind of. So when you were watching that piece, you didn't mind the fact you don't understand what's going on. You
yeah,
felt something in that 10% and enjoyed it 100%. And I think some people are really uncomfortable with not understanding, whereas I love the feeling of
yeah,
not knowing what the heck is going on. I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
lots of
Go ahead.
experiences like that. I guess the tolerance for surrealism is decided partly by how strange your life has been too.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. What were you just going to say? You remembered something about being?
Oh, I took my. This is an obvious example, but I took a much smarter friend than me who works for like Secret Service to see Inland Empire, an American, and
Oh yeah,
he was disgusted. I'm not saying Americans can't get lynched because he is American, but
yeah. Oh, but Americans don't get lynched because he's American. That's the thing. As an American, I can say he was an out there cat,
okay,
and
that's good to know.
he had
I
some very like basic like a lot of people around him said, David was just a hometown American guy, and then you're like, really, Blue Velvet, Inland Empire,
yeah,
you know? So
he
yeah,
does come across that way though. That's the absurdity of it. I love the fact that he's so sweet and cute, and I mean, I've seen him get angry. You've probably seen those
oh
clips where
yeah,
he's.
yeah.
But generally, my view of him is, just obviously the late David Lynch. When did he die again?
Just last year,
Just last year it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's I think a lot of well, I think human beings in general we we are keen to avoid a vacuum for
Mm,
obvious reasons. I think it extrapolates from it extends from like fear of the unknown, fear of darkness, and a lot of people don't like that and get really uncomfortable with it. And um, and then there's folks who aren't, and folks who don't mind a little bit of like being sort of in the yeah, being a bit in the weeds and not
mm,
understanding things. It's funny. I did not think myself someone like that, but as I look back as you're talking, I'm like, oh wait a second. I've always kind of liked stuff like that. Like one of my favorite memories was being I grew up outside of New York City and I would go into the city often. And one day I was either meeting someone in Chinatown or I was looking for a video store because I wanted a particular kung fu movie. And I remember walking into Chinatown and I walked a certain distance and all of a sudden I stopped and looked around and I was like, wow, I'm the only Caucasian as far as I can see. And
mm.
like nobody else. And that was cool as shit.
Yeah,
Now,
you already had it in you.
granted, if I was like suddenly dropped down in the middle of like, Chengdu or something like that, some Beijing, like some place, in a deep area where foreigners do not go, I might feel a little different. But in that moment, it was fascinating to know that I was 37, 38 miles from home and yet very out of my element, like in an
Yeah.
entirely another place. And as I've gotten older too, I really embrace like when I'm not playing video games too much. I've been watching movies to try and figure out like looking for movies that meet a certain feeling. And I found myself watching Valhalla Rising again by Nicholas Winding Refn, if I'm saying that right. And Mads Mikkelsen stars as a mute um, a warrior, basically, just fighter, a one-eyed fighter. And the first dialogue doesn't start for 7 minutes into the film.
Nice. I haven't seen it. That
And
sounds perfect.
it's so good. And the music is so good. It's like one of those, the music is one of those Icelandic composers who does like really beautiful orchestral stuff and then really just grim, experimental things. But I realized something like that, or there's this other horror movie, They Remain, or what is it? Oh, the movie Scent of Green Papaya, which was a Vietnamese film.
Hmm.
I could not tell you what that was about, but I cite it as one of my favorite movies. I have to see it again because I just had no idea what was happening, and it was
Oh,
so
that's the
great.
best
Or
feeling.
yeah, or even better, Cabeza de Vaca. Do you know the story of Cabeza de Vaca?
No, you need to give you an education on film. I always tell people to
Oh,
watch it. I'm
okay.
hopeless.
So Cabeza de Vaca was a real person. He was a conquistador, and he wrote this account. And of course, like anything the conquistadors wrote, 99% bullshit, probably. But he sailed over with a group of people, with soldiers, whatever, from Spain on orders of Queen Isabella, and their group slowly got like whittled away by disease, fighting with the native population, things like that. And then he got separated from his group, and he was basically taken in by a shaman and taught like the ways of healing, and became a shaman and roamed all around not just the south, east, and southern U.S., but like way into Mexico. Um, and the thing they can verify is that yes, he landed in like North Carolina in the states, and then came down Florida and went up through the Gulf of Mexico. By the way, not America, Gulf of Mexico. Went up through that and into Spain. Spain into Mexico, and over like this terrible terrain. And 7 years later, reappeared and was alive. Uh, and there's all sorts of accounts that like this is bullshit for a number of reasons, but the movie that they made of it is so great because um, it's in Spanish, which is obviously there's subtitles, you can understand a little bit of that, but then at a certain point there's not even Spanish, it's just the native language, and I don't know if they approximated with something um, modern that was probably still spoken back then, but you have no fucking clue what's going on through the whole movie. And it's like, oh, did he just revive this woman who had died, or was she asleep? I don't know. Looks like and it's crazy, but I love stuff like that.
Mm.
Just where it's fun, at least in my viewing artistic intake or whatever. It's fun to be in that place where things are not so certain.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, um, it's funny too because I think we talked a little bit about it, but it reminds me of sort of it's a bit like why I like horror movies now is that it takes me away from the current horror of reality. But like,
Yeah,
um,
that's strange, isn't it? How we love horrific and sub. I
yeah,
was thinking about the technological sublime as well, how much I like industry and
yeah,
ugly, so-called ugly structures. And they are ugly
yeah,
what they're doing to the environment, but I can't
yeah,
help aesthetically fall in love. And
yeah. There's
I'd like to
something
live in a
there's
power
something
plant,
about
you
it.
know.
Yeah, it's not. I think people think maybe you have to be like you can't love industry and things like that, but at the same time love nature. But I do. I kind of
Mm.
find I find it fascinating. The symbols of like of yeah of like of there was some old a lot of there's a lot of old factories up here still. But growing up, I would tour them, and you'd like old factories that burned down, and you come across like a 6 foot wide gear, a
Mhm.
wheel that worked, something like that, or like your pictures
Oh, it's bunkers.
of the bunkers and things. It's fascinating, but at the same time, it's like yeah, they're ruining. We've also ruined the planet with a lot of technology.
Yeah,
But
there's a whole bunch of writing about it, isn't there? The technological sublime. And
yeah,
sorry, I interrupted you.
no, no, it's okay. And that's I if you know of any authors like that,
I can send you some. I can't reel
yeah,
them off right now, but I did do
yeah,
some reading because I was disturbed by my own tastes. And the only time it gets dangerous, this is quite a strange aside, but if you have such an aesthetic kind of experience of life, I had a friend who was having a nervous breakdown, which is not funny, but the
yeah.
way it manifested was in very strange behavior that I have endless tolerance for. So he would go up to strangers and just start talking about a very specialist area, and it got increasingly deranged.
Hmm.
And I think he's better now, so I feel free to talk about this.
That's good. Yeah,
It was a bit of a lesson because I was seeing it all like performance art, not from lack of compassion, but more
yeah,
like, this is
yeah,
crazy, but I'm just here for the ride. I'm here for him, and
yeah,
I don't think we recognize like the meaning quite enough. And that doesn't
yeah,
discount anything we're saying. It just means I'm aware that I'm so lost in this, either lost in detail or in the zoomed out extremes that I need to remember that most people have symbolic understanding and codes
yes,
of conduct and social norms and social
yeah.
script that I, I it's easy for me to not bother to follow them. But when someone's having a breakdown and they're not able to, I need to be a bit less relaxed about that, maybe. I know I'm saying some controversial stuff.
No,
It's hard to
I
explain.
get it. It's no, and I get it because yeah, sometimes I mean, if you're hanging around folks who are let's say less than conventional, you get used to a certain amount of behavior,
Yeah, I got used to it, and
and
you
then
lose all perspective.
yeah, and then when you get out, it's like oh shit,
What
oh
was that
I
about?
I I will tell an equally disturbing story, but I love telling it because it's a perfect example of this. My friend Jason went to college, and most kids, are not. I will say for Americans, but perhaps not to totally generalize, not totally ready for the college experience because in a few short months you've gone from perhaps living with your parents at home in a pretty normal regulated situation to you're thrown into a building with a whole bunch of other people and there's less supervision and sex, drugs, alcohol, rock and roll, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And people get caught up, especially like in the states. We have some very big schools like that are like upwards of 10,000 students and stuff like that. And my friend Jason went to one such, which was University of Massachusetts at Amherst, which shouldn't, you know, on saying you think, oh, Massachusetts, fall and the leaves and the Red Sox and stuff, and farms. But like where the university is, you're driving along through farms, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these 30-story high rises just appear, and there's like five of them, and it's the school. So my friend Jason gets there. Obviously, Jason probably already had a proclivity for these things, but right around the time his girlfriend went away to study abroad for a semester, Jason decides it's a good idea to take acid every day.
Oh man.
And when he told me this, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. Um, and and but he said, yeah. So I took it every day, and I said, how long? He said about. And he's like totally nonchalant about it. He's like, about 3 weeks. I was like, Jason. And he said, I know, but don't worry. He said, my girlfriend got home and she saw me and she's like, what's wrong with you? He's like, well, I started, I've been taking acid every day for like a week, 3 weeks. She's, come on. And she takes him by the arm and drags him to the infirmary. And, you know, and he was all better. Obviously, that could have gone terribly wrong. And it didn't. But I look at it as like sometimes either we get from either myopia or whatever, you lose the woods for the trees.
That's a
Um,
good. Yeah,
and I see that, like, I've had some people say, like, I've been with someone and they've been sort of like, well, their behavior was a little odd. And then you discover, like, someone is odd, is behaving odd. And then suddenly they're fine a few weeks later. And they're like, yeah, I got diagnosed as bipolar. It's like, oh, okay, that makes
mm,
sense now. But yeah, so I'm not saying, like, excuse your friend's irrational behavior because it's good for art and the reaction to people, but more that, like, sometimes, yeah, I think we miss that because it's sort of, we can, what's the word, we can kind of contextualize it to a point that we could not, you know
it's the
not.
obvious.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Which is
exactly.
totally what I did. I didn't actually know that was going on with him. I thought he was
Yeah,
just, like you said, having an imaginative
and I've found
period.
that with some people, they've sort of seen me, and I'm used to kind of, I'm used to thwarting people's expectations of me for a number of things. But most of the time I am wearing camouflage pants and like a black T-shirt, which you see, and
Mm.
I don't. I like, it's kind of like I know what I'm going to dress in. I know how I'm going to dress. That's great. Blah blah blah. I like dressing nicer, but I also don't like, feeling like I'm going to wilt the moment I put on a suit, which I do. But sometimes I have to say to people, forgive my, casual outfit, you know, and like that. It also kind of, it reminds me too of something that, oops, I'm just gonna make sure we're not. There's Robert. Everybody say hi to Robert. Um, um, uh, it reminds me that someone once said, well, I've told you the story of going to see, you know, going to see Kraftwerk with Mike Myers, and
Oh
that
yeah.
that insanity. But being dragged into the this it's in New York City. It's a building called the Armory, and it's fairly famous for um, performances being there, art galleries, shows like that. And there were we were there for the TV Land Awards because Mike was giving an award to Pee Wee Herman, of all people. And I was like, said to my friend, I'm like, um, am I dressed okay for this? I'm wearing jeans and like a very mild, inoffensive tartan from LL Bean, button down shirt. And I said, should I be dressed fancy? Or, like, Mike's in a suit. And he's like, well, he's going on camera. You're not. And I'm like, fair point. And he said, also, a lot of people, he said, watch how you're handled. And it was true because I was handled very deferentially. And he said, the backstage folks know that, you know, don't know who you are. And even though they don't recognize you, you could be like a producer or someone, a writer on a show.
A manager or yeah.
Yeah, and you're just, because like before people knew his face from Curb Your Enthusiasm, like Larry David or Larry Charles, we're just kind of schlubby looking guys.
Hmm.
Like Rick Rubin, take him out of his, linen and his stuff, and Rick Rubin looks kind of crazy. Um, but
I don't
that's,
like feet. I don't think feet should be shown. But anyway,
yes, I agree. Feet are
keep the feet in your
complex.
shoes, please.
Yeah, I am not a foot person. That's for sure. No, feet are, ugh, no. It's very few nice. That's the thing I like. It reminds me that we're all human. Is that you'll see, supermodels, and Heidi Klum. She's age appropriate for me. I don't like looking at her feet. I know some people that, like, no, feet and knees are where I think God was like, ugh, you know, I'm
You don't like
just,
these? I think these are all right.
yeah, he's
They're a
like,
bit
I'm
more.
just trying to keep them from killing themselves, and
Oh, you mean in terms of pain?
yeah,
I thought
it's
you meant
yeah.
looks because I like the way these look. They're pretty their contours are quite nice and
See, this is what we were talking about, where someone else is a little weirder than you, so it's okay if you like knees. No, I'm kidding. Now, some knees can be nice, but some are not. But yeah,
we should do a whole Zoom call about knees.
I don't want to do a whole Zoom call about fetishes. I think that would.
No, I wasn't talking about that necessarily.
Sadly, I was. No, my wife would be like, "Yeah, I think we should talk about what you can and can't say on your Zooms." But how do we? Oh, we were talking about genius
Yeah, we went from
and
genius to nervous breakdowns to
yeah, but
you and Mike Myers
there's a
watching
very
Kraftwerk.
yeah there's a very fine line in there, and I think a big thing of this, a big aspect of this, I've been thinking about this a lot since it's actually what we were talking about last time when the talk ended. I was thinking about how um, you know I'm not. It's one of those things I've only thought about in my head, so putting in words is going to be clumsy. But I think for a long time I tried to be like, well, I went from a very childlike thing of like, oh, everyone is spectacular, and you know, people are amazing, like, and all my heroes sprouted forth immediately as they were from like Athena from the head of Venus, and um, everybody I've talked to in interviews from you to my friend Nathan Moody to Robert Henke to Jack Dangers I haven't talked to Sean from Otecker yet, but we're getting there. But everybody I realize is born of parents and comes from a certain life and emerges as they are from a combination of, I think, yeah, this is it, combination of experiences and also sensitivities and awareness.
Yeah, sensitivities and experience. That's
And
it.
I don't, and that's not particularly maybe a overly, um, I'm not the first person ever to say this, obviously, but it's interesting for me because I think, yeah, like I vacillate between, like, at one point I was like, oh, we're all we're all the same, and we're my mother-in-law used to have had a very polite way of saying what I always heard as, well, everybody's got to sit down and shit. Um, the nicer way to put it is, everybody's got to put their pants on one leg at a time, except for those videos, the reels where you'll see people holding up a pair of pants and a gymnast leaps off a swing into them. They're
Or
different.
if you're like my uncle who has no legs. Sorry.
Okay, so there you go. Right. So your
Literally
uncle
no legs.
is
So.
this is the one who I believe lives Life to the fullest,
Yeah,
nonetheless.
yeah, nice memory. Oh, you
Thank
live.
you, thank you. I pick up a few things now and then, young Logan. Some things stay up here in this steel sieve. Um, but I vacillate between like that we're all the same and blah blah blah, and then I realize, but we're not. And some people truly are geniuses and are just operating at a level and seeing things in a different way than I do, and that I can, like, and that's everybody from programmers to like um, I've met clairvoyants and shamans and Buddhist monks, and it's just fascinating. Like, and I really realized that, like, and so what that means, like, we were talking about. I mean, you and I were talking about. I think, well, you had mentioned something about you're working with Lana Del Rey, but like, when you meet somebody like super duper famous or something, I don't go fawning. My wife says I'm a star huffer, star fucker, whatever you want to call it, and I do get a little like whoa about people, but you realize you are in the presence of something and someone special and different. And I've had these experiences where, like, for instance, long ago, I got a copy of Lauren Bacall's autobiography for my mother because my mom really liked it, and I got her to sign it. And when I got there, initially I was like, and this was 30 years ago, 32 years ago. I was like, well, she's Lauren Bacall. She looks a little older. It's not whatever. She's the person, not that. I get up to the table. She signs the book, and she takes the book from me and says hello, and looks at me with the smile in those eyes. And as the saying goes, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Like
Yeah.
something spectacular is coming out of that, and that's where I think, like, you and I have talked, like someone is accessing the divine, like it's going from God to their head and out of their mouth into Pro Tools or the canvas or Word or whatever they're writing, and they have some people just have these astounding insights and uh, 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 tap into something that's very, very different from the rest of us.
Mm.
And I don't want to say it like, it's not to say like, oh, we should be fawning about celebrities and stuff, because at the end of the day, yes, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, except certain individuals. Um, but there is something there about there's some people who are just spectacularly different to work with. A friend of mine got to work with Joe Strummer on the soundtrack of Grosse Point Blank,
Mm.
and he just described it as like, it was all well and good to just hang out with the guy because he was fascinating, but we would do things like we would start the sessions off by piling into his Cadillac and driving around to pawn shops in LA looking for weird instruments to use.
Nice. That's very,
Or something like that, and it's just like someone's really, interesting to be around because of just kind of who and how they're being. Um,
mm.
and this, of course, is also how cults get started,
Yeah.
because at the same time, you have people who are on the other, who are aware that their presence or whatever causes, you know, is different, in their awareness of other people, and they can use that, manipulate it, um, which goes back to just being a normal, weird, human at the end. But did that make sense? Any of what I was saying?
Yeah, it does. I'm having lots of thoughts because, like you, I can't relate to celebrity culture.
Yeah.
But then you meet certain people who. I want to use a really weird example. When I met Sonny Moore, who's now Skrillex,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
he hadn't yet blown up, and it fell through for really stupid reasons. We were happy, but then we missed each other's messages. I was messaging him on MySpace, and he was
Yeah.
messaging an email address I didn't use, and we missed each other. And
Ugh.
then he blew up, and anyway, it doesn't really matter. But I can't deny that even before that, he had a certain aura or presence of and energy that was very
Yeah.
specific. And I know he gets a lot of hate, and I know not everyone likes his music, but in production wise, I don't think there's any question that he isn't something special, even if you don't like his taste. And at the same time, I think we both would find it kind of crazy the way Michael Jackson can just look and everyone screams.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like,
But
what is it?
it, uh, and you can react in different ways. I've been around friends who, when they're with celebrities, they act super tough and disinterested, and I think just calm down with the act.
Mhm.
But so either seems inappropriate, where
Yeah.
you have no awareness of who you're dealing with, not that they're set apart or above reproach, but just that you don't need to. You can drop the act like you don't care, and
Yeah.
this is like super normal. But on the other hand, yeah. I've seen both, and they're equally disturbing.
It is, and it's funny, and you see people just like losing. It's funny. I I, I mean, I have a certain disdain for it, but also I'm a little intrigued by celebrity culture.
Mm,
Um, and from watching TV and movies, obviously I like and know certain actors, but it's interesting because a friend of mine, she's like, oh, I want come to my birthday party. I'm like, okay, and she said, by the way, a friend of mine is visiting from out of town. I was like, oh, that's nice. You got a lot of space there in your house. and they said, yeah, it's Giancarlo Esposito.
Mm.
Gus Fring from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I'm like, oh wow. And they're like, yeah, I met him skiing. I'm like, okay. So, and this is like right when he was really starting to just erupt as in Breaking Bad. And I
Mm.
went to their house, and um, people are like, you know, kind of like giggly around him and just like losing their shit. And I've been in situations where like I've met someone who's famous, and I've talked their ear off, and my wife is like, "Wow, they're never going to want to see you again." But I've also been that disdainful, whatever.
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, you're going to lose your mind, so just be chill."
Yeah,
Because I waited for him to come around, and I saw him. He's like, and he came around to my side of the buffet table, and I nodded at him, and he said, "Hello, how you doing?" He said, "Giancarlo." I said, "Oh yes, I'm familiar." And he kind of laughed. I said, "I would have brought my DVD of School Days had I known you were here, because Bugging Out is my favorite character." And he's like, "Oh, if you got it, I'll sign it." Like he was sort of like, "Oh, someone remembered me, from like my first role."
interesting.
But and I will admit, a little bit of that was like, I bet he'd appreciate that. But a little bit of that was like, I want to see if I can just sort of, but by doing that, I wanted to see like find like a human connection. Does that make? I don't know if that
Mm.
makes sense. And that's the thing. A thing I realized, like you and I have talked a lot about a lot. But a big driver for me is connection and community. And like, um, he he was very nice and down to earth in talking. But like, it is interesting. Like people just lose their minds at stuff like that. I understand. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
totally.
get it really.
I
Also, 99% of it is marketing and all kinds
Yeah,
of factors that have nothing to do with.
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it overlaps, obviously.
What's funny for me is 99% of the time I meet people, I'm like, wow, they're much shorter than I thought they would be. But the only time is one time Alice met Thorbjorn Johnson, the Icelandic actor bodybuilder who played the Mountain in Game of Thrones. Who is I'm 6'6", so I'm over 2 meters tall. He's 6'9", which
What?
is 3 inches more on top of this. And and Alice was like, "Oh yeah," because she works in Iceland. She's actually going over there in 2 weeks, or no, in a week, to work for a while. And she's like, "I met somebody who's in Game of Thrones. I don't remember who." And I said, "Well, do you remember what he looked like?" She said, "He was very big." I was like, "Bigger than me?" She said, "Not really." "Oh, his name was Thor." And I said, "Hold on, hold on, hold on." And I said, "First off, he's a lot bigger than me. So if you
Mhm.
haven't been paying the last attention the last 30 years, I'm very big, but anybody who's big. And then I was just amazed how it just didn't phase her.
Yeah.
Like, but on the other side, sometimes once in a while she'll run into whatever room I'm in, and she's holding up her phone, and she's like, the guys on Airplay Beats liked my comment on their reaction video, because she watches a lot of music reaction videos, which I've grown to love. I think
Oh,
you and I
really?
should do one. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I know we're way off from like whatever we
Let's
were
do one
talking
about
about, but
Stockhausen. Let's listen to some
yes, let's
film
do
our
that.
faces
Stockhausen or Zanakis or
reaction video. No one does those
oh
guys. There's
yes,
always something newer.
but it's great. Yeah, no, people are like, uh, some of the ones she's a lot of the ones she sees people are reacting to uh, 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 it's older stuff, like
Hmm.
maybe the most recent stuff is in the 90s. And it's just really interesting because you get like really good, I mean, you get really good inputs from them. It's in because like one she watches, yeah, Airplay Beats is these two brothers, and they're musicians, and they know about recording, and they've run a studio, so they have really good inputs on recording. But they're also younger. They're probably about your age, maybe actually younger, so they don't know like the history. And like they watched a Bowie video or something, and I was in the comments like, oh, reeling off all the shit I know about, the studio productions of Low and the Berlin era and all that stuff. And but it's really interesting because you learn so much from that. Or like, there's an English kid she watches named Molly Boy, who he's I think he's a bit from the north from his accent. Um, Not that it matters, but it's fascinating because he's young. He's like maybe 21. He's never heard some of this music before,
Mm,
and his reaction is so genuine. Like he's in tears about some stuff, or he's
mm,
jumping up and down when he first hears like "Smells Like Teen Spirit." And
mm,
it's funny because part of it, my kids are 26, and my daughter's boyfriend is like, they can't not have heard Roxanne by the Police, and I'm like, yeah, it's entirely possible. Like,
mm.
I think sometimes I think like, how could you not? That song is everywhere. And I'm like, well, I'm 40 years older than whatever this individual is, and in the interim, not only was I hearing all that music all the time then, but there's 40 years more of music, you know,
Yeah.
and there's that much more. So of course they wouldn't hear it. But I love reaction videos for that. Like, and there's trained musicians. There's one, I think I sent a link on Mastodon where a woman was actually going through song by song on Amber, and she had
Yeah,
her keyboard
yeah,
in front of her,
mm.
and she was talking about it. It's really interesting. But yeah, we should do one, and we listen to
Let's do.
stock music.
I'm up for that.
Yeah.
We can
Well, okay. We'll
pick
figure.
something super heavy.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Do you mind
Yeah.
if we pause this for a moment, Charles? Because
No.
nature is calling, I'm
All right.
afraid.
Nature
How
will
should we do
call.
it? Should I just leave it Zoom running and
Leave Zoom running, and I will entertain people with
we can do a
something
live set? Look at that.
I could do.
That is beautiful.
Oh, I'm not
We should
plugged
talk
in.
technology now, actually. We never,
Yes,
we always say we're going to do that.
we should do that. You do your thing. I'm gonna read folks. Um, I'm gonna read folks some poetry
I'm
because I got some poetry here. So,
looking if I've got any poetry. I don't think I
oh,
have.
here we go. Here's a good one.
I'll be right back.
Alrighty, I'll read the poem again for when you come back. While young Logan is away, I have a poem to read for people. This poem is called "Some Stars." It is written by me, Chang Terhune, and it is dedicated to the writer Laird Barron. Some stars blacken, some stars shine. Some stars wink out at 8:45. Some stars are brilliant, some stars are blue. Some stars are invisible, not to me, but to you. Some stars shimmer, some stars shake. Some stars retire with nary a quake. Some stars grow old, some stars grow anew. Some stars lose their brilliance, and I mean me, not you. I think that's a nice one. Um, as you can tell, I'm not totally into writing uh, poems, but I'll tell you. Here's another thing. Let's see. I have some jokes about my dad, my mom. You don't need to hear that. What about this one? Is this a good one? No. Let's see. Dream fragments. Um, oh, here's another poem. It's called Mirror, Mirror. Mirror, mirror, out in space, whom do you serve? What elder race? What fiendish beings from on high flung yon flying disk into the sky, where you sit of silver visage, to shed no light, yet craven the image of what it beholds up there in the stars, where it flung a queer light at the surface of Mars, which struck that rusty planet with all the might of billions of tons of ye old dynamite, which did roil the red sands from the valleys to the mons, something not dead yet buried, undead yet now hurried, arising from the regolith long thought to be barren and dead, foul things quite animate, swift of moving and inspiring much dread. That's not finished yet, but I'm working on it. Let's see. Um, what else can we read here from my vast notes? Um, See, I got notes in here from various stories, various things like that that would mean absolutely nothing to anybody else but me. So, where is something else? Feel free to listen to the comments if you're actually listening or um, have anything to say. Here's something. Um, oh, HHD, thank you. Is in the chat about the sample folder. That's cool. We would dig them. I will check them out, and so will Robert. Here's one of my jokes. Um, Though I'm in a committed relationship, I'm allowed 2 to 3 celebrity crushes at any given moment. And because I'm a modern sensitive male, I have modern sensitive male crushes. That's right, I like MILFs. One such instance of a MILF is the lovely Jennifer Garner. Yes, Jennifer Garner is age appropriate hot for me, or to me, rather. To me, I should say, not for me. That would imply she was both aware of me and therefore was hot for me, which is, as nice as it sounds, is not reality. I know that she doesn't know I exist, yet no matter how loud the bug cults that live in my pillows scream in my ears at night. Um, anyway, so I was indicating I find Jennifer Garner to be, in fact, very much, as the parlance goes, doable. Um, and I would say a dime. Yes, she's got good cooking. Uh, she's you know, able to cook, and she's got good cooking on the first and second floor, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure what that means. Um, Definitely a MILF for sure. But what's a MILF, you say? Why, it's an acronym, and it's a saucy one at that. It's a saucy one at that. MILF, to me, stands for maternally interesting left-leaning female. That's right, MILF. And that's catnip to a championship varsity mama's boy like me. Those MILFs. Boy. And it's a damn shame because thanks to that Frauderstein's monster, Russell Bland, I can't enjoy her in that lingerie in the movie anymore. What is that, Arthur, that she was in? But I try, believe me. Um, and that the joke ends there. Apparently, wasn't getting that good. Um, Gosh, what else can we see here? Hope Robert gets back soon. We're going to lose our viewer. Um, ba, 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 All right, here's a section of a story. Story I'm working on called The Mason's Son. The Peugeots lived next door to us and had moved in about 4 or 5 years beforehand. My mother, who had grown up in Portland on Munjoy Hill, said the hardest working people she ever knew were the immigrants that lived there, amongst them, especially the Italians. I don't know, but Peugeot is not an Italian name. I'm not sure why I chose. Oh, because the name is supposed to be Peugeotly. Um, anyway, again, I was 12, but also my town was just filled with the people of my town. There were a mix of people: French, Irish, Scots, German, a lot of French Canadians. My grandpa used to say it was because we were so far north in Maine that you took a left, you hit New York. Or that if you went straight, you'd hit Canada. And if you took a right after walking through some forest, eventually you'd hit the water where France was just ahead. Of course, he said there's a little swimming involved in getting to France. Eh, that's not a good one. Oh, here's another one from the same story. Um, just checking in the chat. Got our three. Woohoo! Um, Excuse me. My New Year's Eve is catching up with me. Whoever they pulled out from under the late winter ice on Old Stone Pond wasn't Arthur Poggio. I saw him fall in, then Jimmy Farrell tried to pull him out. But with the weeds that choked the shallows in the brackish pond, he must have become tangled. Went down like a stone. Everything moved really fast, but slow at the same time. We took turns screaming as adults came out of houses along the road. Paramedics got there fast and had him out quick. We didn't see much of him, but Darren Laporte said he caught a glimpse of blue flesh in Arthur's red jacket, which streamed out water and pond muck as they lifted him. No one was sure to do what then. No one was sure what to do then, since our parents weren't going to pick us up for another hour. We'd heard they revived him in the ambulance, and he was in St. Joseph's ICU. I didn't get to visit him for a couple of days. I heard my mom talking to Mrs. Poggio a couple times, but the conversation always sounded weird. I'd ask her about Arthur, but she'd always deflect it. And then she finally said we had to go visit him. I saw his mother outside the hospital room. She was with Arthur's sister, Tina. They looked freaked out, which I guess was understandable, but something else was going on. Oh, what's going on is it's a puppy. Henry, have you come to visit? Henry, come here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Oh, it's a pupper. It's a pupper. Puppers come to visit. I think people need to get a view of Pupper. There he is. Oh, the baby pupper. Oh, this is what Henry likes to do. You're really getting into the sausage making parts of things. Uh, he likes to hang out here on the floor with me when I talk or when I work. And usually he's the reason if I can't get anything done. It's because this delightful little pancake is on the floor getting in my way and hanging out. So, Henry, say hi to Happening Hot Dog Man. Hello, Mr. Hot Dog Man. Do you have any hot dogs? Um, he, of course, would like it. You're not such a hot dog today, are you? No, because you partied. You went and you went and played a lot today. Oh, it's so nice to have both you and Matt here. Happening Hot Dog Man, mysterious Happening Hot Dog Man. Henry today was out with his buddies. Let's see, Bodie, Gretzky, and Tocho, his dog friends. Yeah, I said their names so you recognized them. Bodie is I think he's like a collie mix, like one of those. Yes, I agree. Henry Pancake should be president. He'd make things a lot better. Um, and Bodie's little, oh no, Gretzky's the collar mix. Bodie is his little brother, who's a little golden doodle who kind of looks like a Highland cow running around with all his fur a flopping. And then their buddy Tocho looks like a husky, but is actually his mother is his human mother is Native American, and she comes from a reservation here in Maine, and she said he's a res dog. So he looks like a husky. It's fascinating, but he's very much like sort of wild, kind of. I guess they call them they call them Indian dogs. I know I probably shouldn't say the word, but they call them that. But they're a mix of all sorts of dogs, but a lot of like Malamute and just wild dogs. But he had such a great time. He's such a little weird little treasure. This dog Henry. So let's see. There's the guitar. You can see the synths. I think when Robert gets back, we'll do a breakdown of what the what our gear is. Um, I would love to go bowling. We have. Do they? I bet they don't. But over there, anywhere over there, do they have candle pin bowling, or is it just like the standard size? Because here in the States, I think it's very much a New England thing. We have candle pin, which is like the pins are shorter. They're maybe like just under a foot tall, and the ball is it's like sort of like a bocce ball, but um, the rules are a little different. But I don't know if it's just specifically a New England thing or if it's elsewhere. But maybe someday I'll live stream from there. It'd be fun just because the one we have here is a very local place. There he is. He's back.
Hi, that was a complicated affair. I
That's
apologize.
okay. I'm glad you're back. I've been boring people with my poetry.
Is anyone watching? Have we got anyone with us?
Yes, we have the beautiful um, Matt Beckingham,
Oh, he's great. He's
and
like
yes, and then
favorite person at the moment.
Happening Hot Dog Man. I was thinking, since you're back, I don't know if you wanted to talk about something, but maybe now we could do what's your gear, um, unless you want to do that. I was
Yeah, we
about
could
to.
do that because what's his username on Mastodon?
Who?
Ghost Me.
Oh, is that Matt?
No, no, Matt is
Matt is Matt.
a different person. Ghost Meat's name is he has a long. Matt's also a great person, but
Yeah.
Ghost Meat is Odysseus. He's a proper, a real name's name, like one of those fancy
Oh yeah.
extended descriptors, but he goes by Odie, I think. Anyway,
Okay.
he sent me his third wave, but I don't want to lift it up in case I break it, which
Who makes the third wave?
Groove Synthesis
Ooh, so it's a new
on
company.
this chair. Yeah, I can lift it up.
Yeah, you can. You can.
See,
Oh, that's
yeah,
nice.
very.
I have to confess, I have a Waldorf Indium in a box, and
Ooh.
I really need to get it out. Yeah. Well, we're after a long battle where come here, Henry, come here. My not battle, but long discussion. My wife and I, we've agreed to let the kids move into the basement of our house because housing prices here are just fucked, and you
Hmm.
can't get anything. So they're taking over the basement, and I'm moving out of my office. But I get their old room, which is a little bigger. But I'll finally be able to put all my synths up and everything, which will be nice. I'm really,
That'd be nice. That deserves to
yeah,
be outside the box.
yeah, it does, and it deserves to be played. And I'm also, I mean, I'm getting now that I'm really getting into like, it's hard for me to say this because I feel like it's a bit of showing my ass on the internet. But I've been doing that since like 1994, three, so whatever. But well, no, I've talked about this. I was in a very long period where I was not terribly experimental. Like
Hmm.
I had my, I had my setups of things where I had everything in like a very specific template of how to
Hmm.
work in Ableton or something else. And I I I just got very much in a rut. And I think it was it was actually last year. It was about this time um, where I realized how much of a rut I was in, and that I'd really stopped experimenting, which is
Hmm.
insane to think of, given that you
That's
know
what
me,
you
and
do.
we listen to a lot of similar music. Like the music that we love is very experimental in nature, and you arrive by the great stuff in it by experimenting. And I wasn't doing that, so I really started to like. Oh, Matt Beckingham is Mace Matt of the great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh God, what's Mace and what's? You got to tell me the name of the album because I don't want to flip the screen. I'm going to go to my Bandcamp.
My brain's been fried on Ambien, so I can't remember names at the
Oh,
moment.
mine is just fried on being me. Sadly, I'm going to find your album, dude. I'm sorry. Oh, Macy Circles.
Yeah,
That uh, one of my favorite albums that I discovered last year, but so good.
yeah.
Um,
You love. I remember
oh,
you shared
so
about that
good.
a few times. I
Yeah,
need to give it a really proper list. I
yeah. But it's I've never heard some people stomp a sawtooth wave so hard and just rock so hard without drums. It's really beautiful.
It did sound good.
Yeah,
I was having a bad ear period when I tried to listen to it, so I should give it another
yeah.
whirl.
I've been having a little worse. I have to admit the Otecker concert kind of I was not. I wore my AirPods, which were actually pretty good for noise canceling. There, that was a real test of them. I think I may
Mm.
have broken them, in fact, because I think they were just not able to handle it. But but uh, uh, I've been having slightly rough periods of hearing stuff. So it's been when we were at that church service, I was sitting there kind of gritting my teeth.
Was that
Um,
loud?
yeah, it was loud, but it wasn't. It was the organ. I mean, church organs are designed to do that. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
played an organ recently, and
Oh, that was so beautiful.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Are you
My
allowed to
friends are
say
not.
where that church was?
Yeah, I can say I forgot the name of it to be honest, but he is an I don't know why this is the case, but he's an architect, so for some reason he has the key to that church.
Mm.
I mean, he is a member as well. It's an Anglican church in Notting Hill kind of area. I
Oh,
don't know any more than
nice. Oh, that's lovely. I
and we
wonder.
had to do the pedal all the way quiet and only use a few stops because even though I was wearing my earmuffs, yeah,
Yeah,
they get loud, of course. And
yeah. I was. I think I was talking about the church that I grew up in. I think we were talking about this last time, but I didn't grow up in a church. But the church I went to was a Presbyterian church, and it was built in the '50s, and it, it's it's actually a famous piece of brutalist um, of architecture,
mm,
um, because it's just this really crazy looking structure. That's It's a little hard to see, but it's
oh,
called the Fish Church, and it's all
I like
triangles.
that building.
Oh, it's beautiful. And then that's the steeple.
Mm.
And I never realized going to church how weird it was, but oh, and that's the
Oh, that's
interior. It's
gorgeous.
just beautiful.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah, it's really astounding. Like uh, uh, as much as I didn't like going to church then, like on a beautiful sunny morning when you'd hear the choir and the organ going and that light streaming in, it's like, yeah, you're feeling the presence of God. But the organ in that place is astounding because it's just, it's all reverberant surfaces.
Mm.
They had some treatment in there. When I was a kid, I'd be bored. I'd be like, you reach under the seat because you're just, looking for something to do with your hands. And I discovered I was pulling this stuff out. And I was like, what is this straw? And then later I learned it was sound baffling.
Oh,
Yeah, so but yeah, playing that kind of stuff, it's just so. It's funny how I have such a deep feeling for organ music like that from that period, even though I'm not. I don't consider myself that,
religious.
religious or whatever. But I
Yes.
was sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's phenomenal music, isn't it? I went to
Yeah,
a Catholic school, so I can relate to you and grew up um, having to go to Vespers and Benediction I
yeah.
think it was every week, I can't remember, but regularly. And no one else was that interested, but our music teacher would play the hymns and then take off improvising
Oh,
after the service was over. And he went full on. It was very chromatic and dissonant and
mm.
exciting and violent sounding music. Uh, It was kind of ironic and strange. The kids are chatting and no one cares, and he's firing out this. I reckon talking of genius, again, I know that word is some people get really upset with it, but he
Yeah.
he was something. I don't know if he was a genius, but he played that organ like I've never heard it before or since.
Isn't that's
And he was a school teacher. I mean,
yeah,
that's why not everyone rises to the top. He
yeah.
never did anything beyond play it to kids who weren't listening.
But isn't it? Maybe that's. I mean, I'm sure. He may have. Who knows? He may have had other aspirations, but maybe that's all he wanted to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of come. I wish I could feel like that.
Yeah.
I wish I
Right.
didn't care and got on with it. And the ego is quite annoying. That it's desperation for
It
people to hear and listen.
it is. I'm torn between that and like wanting to. It's funny. I think of a scene from the movie 9.5 Weeks, which not a lot of people think about, and that may be too old a reference for you, but back in the
Yes.
80s, when it came out, boy, that was a sexy movie. But it was Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger, and it was all about a couple pushing the envelope of taboos. Nowadays it'd be like a couple goes out to have brunch on Tuesday. It was like that shocking. But one of the things Kim Basinger, and it works for an art gallery, and they're trying to court this reclusive older artist, and the older artist, he doesn't want like New York galleries and art things like that. He just wants to be left alone to paint and fish
Wow.
in his cabin, and that's me. I just want to be left alone to to make my music and stuff. But then I realize I get that point and I'm like, I miss people. Like I want to talk to people. I
Mm.
want somebody to hear it. But um, but yeah, that's it's a fascinating, enduring image. Um, what do you so the third wave? What I feel like that company's made some other polys.
I don't. Maybe you were thinking that because it's got the Prophet Fives filter on there,
Oh, okay, yeah.
which is I think why it sounds so good.
I have a
But it's not
I
the
have a
only
sequential
reason. But
circuits take six in my storage as well. So
oh, having said that, I tried. Ivor, my friend Ivor and I tried to get the Prophet 12 to sound good, and we're both believers that anything can sound good. Can use anything and all that. But actually, that thing refused to sound good.
interesting.
Uh, and a lot of people swear by it, so maybe we were just being really stupid. But something about the filter on that is
Yeah,
and really nasal and thin sounding. I'm just, to
and
be
it's
honest.
interesting, yeah, because some people love a certain. I mean, some people love a certain sound, and then
Mm,
maybe it's just you and Ivor have, like we were talking about, those sensitivities where it's not that you know it's not quite as exciting as everybody else thinks. I remember it's funny,
I
like
think.
I I despise the sound of like Fender basses, and I think I can tell them
Uh,
usually. I don't know, something about it. When I owned one, I stupidly sold a Gibson bass that I had that I loved, and I got a Fender P bass that was great, but I just didn't like the sound, and it's on permanent loan to my friend Jay. Um,
mm.
but it's so it's just a specific sound. But I'm like, well, you know, millions of other people can't be wrong. So
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We should
it
go on
might.
a gear bashing tirade now. I like this because there's a few I can think of where, like your Fender example,
I
everyone
am
loves the
ready.
thing and I hate it.
I will.
Like,
I will do that. If you don't have, I have one at the ready. So if you don't, I will.
I have got one, and then you should go for it because I want to hear more of
Go.
your. This is going to be really, and I do use these plugs, but the Valhalla reverbs. And so everyone swears by them, and they
I
are.
love them.
I know, and I do use them. That's so none of this is as simple as I would like to think. I use them every day in some capacity, but especially for vocalists who want that sound. But um, I like the vintage verb.
Yeah.
That's got a really cool. That's amazing, actually. I can't dislike that. But
Yeah.
the original room and shimmer that everyone uses, there's something in the sound where if you want, it's like my Big Sky. If you want a polished, really rich deluxe reverb, obviously
Yeah.
it's going to do that. But I can't get it to do things like I can do with even my old DX. I remember what it was called now, the Sonitas Effects reverb, where it can sound lush and
Uh huh.
3D, but you can also set the room size really small and play the diffusion and get a lot of high-end weirdness.
Interesting.
When I try and do that with the Valhalla, it's like it crumbles and it wasn't built to do that, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but I need a bit of that in my verbs and there's lots of other. Maybe Ivor and I are just weird because he doesn't like them either. And when he was doing the John Grant record, John wanted shimmer on everything, like shimmer, 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 like his vocoder tracks.
Wow.
And Ivor's sitting there grimacing, just adding.
It's funny. I'm sort
And
of
it's
like
a good reverb, but I'm probably just weird. I
no,
can't.
and I mean, I love John Grant because you introduced me to him, and I think he's amazing.
Yeah,
And
he's an amazing person and artist for sure.
Shimmer, I can understand when I'm thinking Shimmer because I think of the way I use it, which is usually, it's the dry signal is gone and it's fully wet and it's overpowering. So perhaps he's hearing some way in which it's not
Mm,
doing that. But I can understand that certain things like that. I love the Valhalla um, effects. I love, yeah, Vintage Herb. I love, and Supermassive. The delay. I really love. You can do some really amazing stuff with that. Um,
mm.
I will say
What's
one
your
piece of gear I hate is the Korg SQ64 sequencer, and
really?
and it's
I've not
interesting.
used it, but
Yeah, and there's a good reason because it sucks. Um, and I remember, and a couple of friends of mine still use them, and I love them. So it may be just me, but I did read some reviews where people were like, "What the fuck?" I think yeah, it was like I saw a Bad Gear episode and on YouTube, and he did it, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so it's not just me." But It's funny because I worked so hard with it, and I'm sure I shared with you on multiple occasions how frustrated I was because, and I felt as if, like, I realized I learned something very much about myself in hating this thing. Like, I felt like because someone had, it's sort of like someone took the time to put this out. So, like, the brilliant engineers at Korg knew what they were doing, and I'm just too much of a dolt to figure it out. So I got to stick with it. But then I read some reviews, and people were like, "This thing sucks," and I was like, "You know what? It's not me." And and I'm too old. I think at the time I was 55. I'm 2 years older. I'm like, I'm too old to fucking deal with this and try to sit
Waste
it
time
out
with
with something. Yeah,
yeah.
and it was terrible. And I was having all sorts of shit and issues with it. Like, it was sending weird random signals to other devices, and like trying to use it with like my the SPO4 404 was a nightmare for some reason. But I boxed it up and put it away. And oh yeah, and then I got the Dig Attacked, and I mean, it's an electron device, so there's a learning curve, but it just made much more sense. Like, it was laid out in more, uh, linear, understandable way, the workflow. But God, that thing was terrible. In fact, what's his name? Deep Glens, who opened 4 shows for OTEC, he put them all live on
Camp, right?
yeah, and if you haven't checked them out, they're amazing.
Oh, I
But
should.
he went out with one of those, and I was like, "Are you insane? Like,
Yeah,
do you
some
just do you
people.
just want to be uncomfortable?" But some people, like, it works with their workflow. I hated it, and I couldn't figure out. And it's funny, once I figured out the Dig Attacked,
Mm,
again, not the most intuitive, easy interface, but once I figured it out, like, things opened up, and I got all this working. But yeah, that thing was a piece of shit. But as I've come to realize, and this is no surprise, not everything that makes it to market is good,
yeah,
and and is well thought out to the nth degree.
I bought a few rubbish plugins which were expensive,
Yeah,
and then you don't admit it at first because you think I've just spent 70 quid on a
yeah,
vocoder. That vocal synth by Isotope. I love Isotope, but
yeah,
that's
yeah,
another one that I can't stand. Again, I use it every day. I do side chaining with it. So none of
right,
this is a hard and fast rule, but I have to admit the interface is fine, but the sound, you have to really do a lot of work to escape a kind of thin, let's just say a thin sound or a very small sweet spot like the Juno 106,
yeah,
which can be a problem, but you have to work really hard to make it sound bad. It's always going to sound
yeah,
pretty rich. Like,
yeah, yeah,
whereas other
exactly.
things you have to really you have to massage them and pepper them with compliments
Yeah,
and deal with their awkwardness and tiptoe around and make them
to
feel happy, and then the
to
synth
get
sounds good eventually.
to get something audible out of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, here's like a backhanded compliment to in terms of like a plugin. I got Infiltrator by Devious Machines,
Mm. I've got that. I haven't used it yet. I need to
and
go onto that.
it's a love hate thing with it. And this is why I it actually it made me love my daughter's boyfriend even more. I say to him, he's the son I never had. But he said, "I love that thing. It sounds so awesome, but it's like cheating."
Uh,
And I'm like, "Oh, you're right." And it's not that they made a plugin too good. It's that it sounds so good. You want to once you put it on a track, you want to throw it on every track because every other channel without it sounds kind of weak.
mm,
What I realized is part of that is it's got a very potent output, gain bus, so it's loud as balls. But the other thing too is like it's what I realize is and I'm like you. I'm like any instrument is good and is valid and should not
Mm.
be thrown out purely because you don't get it.
Mm.
Because I always think like someone I don't know someone said something stupid on like social media or something, and I said this is the type of guy who saw a TB-303 in a pawn shop in 1988 and said it wasn't even worth that much,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And I'm like, and it's funny, and that I think comes from an old story my father told me. I won't quite digress into that, but like, there's value in something, and you can make it work. It's like the scene in Blues Brothers. I don't know if you haven't seen it up, but they go into a pawn shop with these old instruments, and the keyboard player goes to a Rhodes, five Mark Five, and he's like, the action's all dead and everything. And the pawn shop owner comes over and says, well, I think it's still got a few good tones in it. Granted, the pawn shop owner in the movie, it's Ray Charles, so he of course destroys it. But it's like anybody can do that. Like there's valid stuff in something, but Infiltrator, I realize, is like you have to work hard, kind of just to get it out of the really obvious stuff to do like to really kind of dig into it. And part of that is because it's so powerful, and you can
Mm.
make just ridiculous sounds with it. I will sometimes, if I just want to have something in the background that's just messed up, I will take a long audio file, like some atmospheric recording of like forest or something, and run it through there, and instantly it turns it into mush, or something, and it's brilliant. But it is something where it's like too good, and I have to
Yeah.
use it sparingly because it has a very distinctive sound. But it's worth I'd say it's worth experimenting with. But yeah, you right off the bat. And it's funny when Ryan said, "It's just I feel like I'm cheating." I'm like, "Oh, this guy gets it." He's been making music for maybe 10 years as opposed to all the years I have. But he's on a much quicker track than I could be, that I was at that age maybe. But let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
cheating is a good word. And for some gear where it's, especially some new software I've tried where it does a lot of source very quickly and you get excited and you want to go for it and apply it everywhere. And I'm
yeah,
thinking also of some loudness plugins and saturators and
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, you have to then be careful because there's no headroom left. I don't mean that literally necessarily. I mean in terms of creativity and nuance, you're kind of just,
yeah,
everything's at the max. And then there's the second thing you said where it's a synth or a drum machine where it sounds pretty distinctive or a plugin. And I don't like hearing a track and hearing what's going on unless there's exceptions. It's weird how we
yeah,
have those rules. Like we can hear a 303 or obviously a bunch of certain 909s, whatever. You
yeah,
don't mind that being there, but I don't want to hear an absinthe preset when I'm listening to a track. Or even going back to Valhalla, I can tell when it's been overused on
yeah,
the verbs, and I just don't like that feeling. It's
yeah.
uncomfortable.
It's interesting because yeah, for me, it's funny when I can identify something. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's like because I'm a musician and I feel like some of the magic's gone, like because I
Mm,
see how the sausage is, I know how the sausage is being made. But it's funny, Alice and I were watching something or listening, and I heard it was in some show, like it was like Pluribus or something, and I heard like a standard Ableton drum kit,
mm.
and I'm like, oh god, I love that. I use that too much. I'm gonna have to delete it because I know it so well. Um, but yeah, it's funny too, and I'll kind of, when I first read this quote by Nils Fromm, I'm probably not saying his name right. I was like, oh, fuck that guy. But then I realized, well, he's Nils Fromm and I'm not. Like, you know, he might be onto something. But he was saying something like, how he works really hard to make his stuff sound unique, which is true. But he's like, I can hear an Ableton preset and I can hear an Ableton plugin, right off the bat, and it turns me off. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe, but like, maybe it's just that I think part of it is with like electronic music. One thing is because it's, I think because it has such an inherent in electronic music is um, futurism,
Mm.
I dare say, and a moving forward and looking at technology as a way forward and evolving. That when you hear something you recognize, when I hear something I recognize, it takes me out of that sort of escapist forward moving thing and into like, it's contemporary. It was made, some guy made this in, a house in suburban Michigan and blah, which is dumb because, you know, how long has the acoustic guitar been around? Hundreds of years. And yet, I dare say that as bored as you might be with someone strumming along lazily to like "Here Comes the Sun," someone else you could, let's say you're walking a street with a bunch of buskers, you could run into someone a block or two later who's just absolutely doing something mind-bendingly different with it. And it's for me part of as a musician, it's like keeping myself open to the possibilities that, which is really hard, that I don't know and I haven't been uh, um, I haven't seen it all and known it all,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
and that just because I think I've done something, it's not indicative of the fact that you know this thing should get, it should be wrapped up in tomorrow's fish and chip papers, like that, like, and just keeping my mind open. So yeah, someone else out there, like who knows, it's probably what's his name, the Deep Glens. That guy goes out there with a Korg SQ64 sequencer, fucking shreds it. My friend Deftly D does. I don't. It doesn't mean
Props to them, man.
they're bad people. It just means I just didn't get it. But that workflow, um, it works for them. It's really interesting. It's funny because it just reminded me of this conversation I had when I did a gig in September, and I was talking with folks about like really just starting to get into like the conditional triggers and stuff with the Digitact, which is ridiculous because I've owned this fucking thing, the Rhythm, for 10 years, and of course that has trigs and on it left and right, but I never used them because I was terrified of them, of getting out
Sounds pretty
of
weird.
you know. But now, like I was talking with them of this, and like, oh my god, now I'm like, it's almost too variegated because I got all the triggers going. But what this guy was saying, and they were talking about that or like live or Max MSPs. Like he said, we were talking about the fact that, and I think I've said this. I I was talking to when I was talking to Robert Henke, I mentioned the picture from the Otecker subreddit of their laptop before I think the Lyon gig in 24, and it's just the two laptops there with their interface of Max on it, and it's like it's a custom made interface, so who knows what the hell it's supposed to do. And I said to him, I see that picture of Otecker, and I see that. I don't know what's going on, but I
Mm.
hear it, and it's brilliant. And he said, well, if it makes you feel any better, I don't understand what's going on there either. And I'm like, but you're the steward of Max MSP now. Like, you should know.
Ah,
And then Sean, I mentioned that to him, and he said, yeah, well, tell Robert. I said, I see his setups, and I don't know what the hell is going on there.
that's nice.
Yeah, and it is. And that when I was talking to these guys, I at this gig, I realized what we realized was like a lot of those things shows really, it kind of shows your workflow, but how you think and how you
Mm.
approach making music. Because like Otecker's use of Max is going to look different from Mono Lakes and anybody else's, but um, they're using the basic same very potent, powerful thing to make um, two very different kind of types of music.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think that's something that to a certain degree, our gear says that about us. Not to make it more about the gear, because it's really not. Uh, but
It does, doesn't it? Especially if someone's drawn to being very customized
yeah,
and so it ends up a mystery even between two users of Macs.
yeah.
And I recognize as well my desire for mystery is not like it's not universal and it's strange. But why is it that we can hear some instruments and we don't mind they're a preset and others we
Yeah,
get I'm not saying that's right. Like if I hear beat repeat, I get very upset.
yeah, 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 yep.
But I'm not saying that's a good thing. I just don't like to hear
But
too
it,
overt a sound from the gear and
yeah,
on the other hand, there's
but again, it's
exceptions.
the type of thing that has a very it has a very specific sound, and it
Mm,
like and I it's funny because I didn't like beat repeat for a long time either, and I use it a lot. But it's funny. I found an article in Music Radar um,
mm,
where they showed a very basic thing to build in beat repeat so that it kind of enlivens a very standard like stayed like 4/4, you know that kind of beat. It could vary it a little bit so it could be a little more interesting. And I followed the tutorial and I built one and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I
mm,
proceeded to build one that was like four of those.
mm.
And I actually built one that was 16 and that was a bit much. But I got four, and what I love is like if you tune it right, really careful, you can get some very organic feeling, like like fills and cut ups. It's interesting because I there's a song I'm working on now up here with this stuff. There's some beats that are very similar, like it's and the electron, the digitact, cuts it up in a certain way that's very similar, um, which I find is
Yeah, this is detailed.
yeah,
These are because obviously beat repeat's doing something quite standard,
yeah,
which we all do all the time anyway, manually or with other gear. But so I suppose what we mean is there's ways of using it which well, I've seen all extremes. Like with the Chaos Pad, I remember when they were popular, I was a
yeah,
kid, and some people were using them really beautifully, and then some people would be like, and that can be cool, but it was like
yeah.
this is more like the Chaos Pad show. This is I think what you're doing
Yeah,
here.
it's a little.
Uh,
It's funny. I kind of get the
I've got
same
one.
way.
I like it, but
Oh, I have the
it's over here. I
original.
can't lift it up. Do you
Yeah,
have one?
I have the original Chaos Pad, and then I have like the KP3, which I got to get out because I used it in some gigs and I loved it. It was so
Yeah, it's
insane.
it's fun, isn't it? I wish I did a really expensive version. Not that I've got the money, but
Yeah,
imagine like an Eventide engine type, like rich sounding Chaos Pad. So you've got the full control,
oh,
but you're like controlling verbs and
yeah. Oh, and it like
a good
outputs
pitch
in
shift
quad.
algorithm. Yeah, that would be because they're
Oh,
all cheap and cheerful, which is fine, but
we got to pause for a second because woo,
I'll convince one of my friends who can afford it to get
you'd
one, then
think
I'll
we were
get your
talking about knees and feet again. Woo, no.
Yeah,
Um,
this is
but yeah, like something. It's interesting, something like that. That's amazing to me now, though. Too is like I'm still amazed how much people can put together and put out like homemade equipment, like stuff people are building off of like an Arduino or something, or like the like this thing, the lemon drop. Um, I have been I've had it for a couple of years, and I only just started to mess with the real time granular effects, and it's like,
Mm.
oh my god, like whoa, this is like this does like something I've been thinking I want have something do
For
for
a long
ages, and I've
time.
never tried
Mm.
it. So yeah, it's a fascinating little, really powerful device. Right now, though, I swear to God, there's either a mouse or a poltergeist that every so often pulls the mini SD card out and just it's like 2 inches away from the machine. Like this happened yesterday. I swear to God, it was 2 inches away from the machine. Somehow it was out of it and it wouldn't boot up. and I found it
Wow.
like under, and I'm like, okay, I moved
Not
some
Henry,
stuff.
not Henry, is it?
No, it's
Henry
not
the
Henry. It's not Barney. It's not either Barney either. The cat would definitely do that because if he knew it would get him fed faster, he would do that. But yeah, that's a potent little device. But yeah, the Chaos Pads are amazing. Bob Moog said the Chaos Pad was one of the most innovative devices invented in the 20th century, or for the 21st century, for that matter.
Wow. Oh, that's reassuring because I thought I
Yeah,
was to love it so much because it's kind of seen as a toy by some and it wasn't built for, yeah, like I said, high fidelity sound wasn't the aim, but
yeah,
the interface is really, really special and I'm
yeah.
surprised they didn't capitalize on that and build more and
Yeah, well, I think they got into like, didn't they? I forgot if they did they buy the Monome or no, Yamaha. I think bought the Monome. Yeah,
oh, okay.
I think Korg felt that at that point maybe the technology in the market. I mean, who knows, was moving in a different direction, which is a shame because that is really a powerful device. Yeah, I had a live gig where like, I mean, yeah, I was running things I was running live off my laptop. So instead of, and it's one of those things like, would someone like make a big set of all their songs, like 8 songs, into one live set, or do what I do and like, I play a song, I finish it, I open up the next one, and I'd have like the Chaos Pad. I'd use it to catch loops of stuff during the
Yeah,
song,
yeah.
and then afterwards, and it was so great because you never know what it would get, and
No.
and you
That's the
just
fun of it, right?
pick up something weird, and yeah, I will do that. Like I used to love like way back, like using hardware samplers. I used to love plugging a radio into it, like a shortwave, and turning down the output, the playthrough, so I couldn't hear, and just finding a station and then hitting record and just sampling something at random.
Mm,
And I got some of the most amazing samples.
I bet you did
There's a
doing that.
song. There's actually a good example, the best example of that on my Bandcamp, um, Condition Human recordings. There's a song by my friend Matthew and I did called Eastern Sprints. Our band was Ampron Abid. It's a long story. It's named after a mythical, one of a kind synthesizer. But in that, I just found samples and I took them and I got like a really weird sample of like a Missy Elliott song at just the right point. I got a sample of somebody talking about I lived in Boston at the time, so someone was talking about the regatta, the head of the Charles Rowing Regatta, and I caught some guy saying we were at the Eastern Sprints,
Mm.
and that just loops, and it was incredible. So like it's that kind of stuff is like what I call that's found it's by chance and stuff. But yeah, it was really potent doing that on the Chaos Pad because you just turn up wonderful weird stuff.
I bet there's a petition already, but we should do one. Like,
No doubt. Yeah, or find
imagine it
someone.
with good MIDI out because the MIDI's tetchy and kind of hard to
Yeah.
use. I'm a bit into Reactor, and I'd love to have a Reactor patch running with a Chaos pad, like one that can do it properly, outputting the
Oh, that could be
data.
cool.
Yeah, that would
I
be.
What's his name? Forest Drive West, who's does kind of like techno jungle stuff. I really love. He was describing like a reactor patch he was working on, and I'm probably reading it, but he was like, it would put a snare in at different places based on, and what I love is you're hearing someone say this, and then you read like and they're in his day job he's a maths PhD at Kent University of Kent or something like that. He's actually, what's his name? Who is the guy from Caribou? Dan Snaith is a maths genius from
Ooh.
from Canada. Yeah, and David Gedge from Wedding Present was at Leeds. But anyway, like yeah, like that stuff's very reactive. I've heard like really good things about that. I'm slowly getting towards working in Max MSP. I started doing this stuff because I wanted to work more with outboard gear, and then I discovered after like 20 years, literally, of playing just in the box in Ableton,
Mhm.
that I feel like I've said this before somewhere, but in one of our chats, but like after I, I started working in a DAW because I felt like uh, um, I don't know. I felt like maybe I was like lazy or just not quite listening to what I was doing with hardware. And I thought when I started working with hardware again, I would be going back to those bad habits. But
Mm.
silly me, what I realized was in 20 years, I taught myself um, how I taught myself basically I'd gotten rid of a lot of the bad habits,
Mm.
um, and and was able to like work in a whole new different way with with live gear. Um, and since we're talking at length, it started from many years ago. My friend um, our Professor Schrock, a very brilliant guy, um, was talking about. We were talking about Plastic Man, about Richie Hawtin,
Oh yeah.
and how his early stuff, how it's just so brilliant because it's just 303, maybe two 303s, and an 808 and or a 909, and like a couple of synths, like very little.
Mm.
And he would make these incredibly long, sparse, brilliant tracks. And we were kind of dissecting it as one does. And my friend R Shred R said he's got an amazing sense of the long view. In
Mm.
that when he's playing the stuff and doing this, the live stuff, he's not just looking at the moment he's in, but like it's clear, like stuff he's thinking ahead of the point he's at.
Mm.
If that kind of makes sense, and I realized
Yeah.
what that was yeah, it's like being aware, when you're playing live and stuff, being aware in a different way perhaps than I was. Now, obviously, some people, yeah, were doing that, like not just Richie Hawtin, but like when I found out that Sean said that all almost all the takes, the tracks on Try Repete,
They're live, aren't they?
they're
Yeah.
live.
Mm.
That and Amber and Incunabula, they're live.
Mm.
Like, what? And he said,
Yeah.
yeah, he said very little. And I'm like, holy shit. And that's like, talk about a sense of composition and arrangement. And that was back in the day when they were still, they were still pretty out there, even though they kind of still had their feet on planet Earth. And it's just, it was amazing to think that. But so going back to me, because I like to talk about me, but um, I realized, like, yeah, getting back to this stuff and playing, like, well, at the live stream I did, like, for my birthday, like, I really didn't think about it. I just rolled out of bed and played for an hour, and then at the end of it, I was like, oh my god, I don't have to worry about that anymore because I get what I'm doing,
Yeah,
and
you're
not like
informed.
all that in a bag of chips, but like I understand what I'm doing in the here and now with these machines of mine, and it was it's gratifying in a way just because I realized I was in a different I'd grown as a musician,
Mm.
and I was in a different place than I thought I'd been, and with a different, and I had different tools at hand. I could use in either scenario, either in the box or either with this stuff. Um, and it's just and that's that I find fascinating, and that's it, like it's my wife and I ages ago we used to do yoga classes where I would like DJ and she would teach. And today we were listening to a song, and it's one she'd used, and she said, would you ever do those again? And I said, yeah. And she said, oh, you don't sound very committed to it. I said, no, actually, I really would. I said, I realize what it is I like live performance, and I
Mm,
like being up there, and I like being, not in front of a crowd, because you know they're not big crowds when I played most of the time, but like just being in the moment of it.
mm.
Because you really, like, we've touched on this sometimes, but I think in that moment, it's like you feel the divine in you, uh, you know as you're
If it's
working
going
at this
well.
thing. Yeah, if it's going well. I mean, I have to remember who this pianist was. I almost think it's Mahler, but it probably, might not have been. But what his day looked like was he would get up every morning and sit at the piano, pray, and then play for a bit. If he didn't like what he did, he'd pray some more, and then he'd play until he found something that he liked.
Mm,
And I realized that, for me, it was a somewhat similar path, but it's similar for a lot of people. Is that, yeah, it's that sort of trial and error of finding something. But yeah, when you find that thing that's working for you,
mm.
and it arrives at a point, and you feel it just sort of all come together. It's it's not even necessarily if other people can hear it. It's like if you get it. You know?
Yeah, because they don't match always, do they? You can be having a
No.
really bad time up there and
Yeah.
people enjoyed it, and then other times you
Yeah.
really hit something special. And
Isn't
it's
that
weird
isn't
when
it?
you found something exciting and the crowd's kind of lukewarm. Not I haven't played
Yeah.
live in ages, so I can't remember much, but
Yeah, but you've still played live enough so that,
yeah.
like, yeah, it's so interesting. Like, and I mean, I had a gig only recently where, like, I thought it was okay, and then I looked up and people were dancing, and I was like,
Wonderful.
I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sure I've seen anybody dance at my gigs before.
That's
Um, and I was like, wow, okay, so I'm doing something different now.
yeah.
But yeah, that, it's that it really is. It happens more so for me with music, less with writing and with art, but maybe it's where my zone of excellence is, or whatever. It's just where I hear it and feel it the most, is like when a piece comes together, and, like, be it, a progression or whatever, that moment you're just like, oh my goodness. A meteor could
Yeah.
a meteor could strike me down, and I'd be at the happiest point ever in my life now because of this. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I I like those feelings. At the same time, I know that we've both talked about um doing it regardless, and
yeah,
the ideal is this summation and this kind of summit where everything's working together, feelings, emotions, you've discovered something
yeah,
new. It's it's making sense, there's a coherence to it, but you also don't know what's going on in some ways. But
yeah,
at the same time, I haven't really been feeling music for a long time, but I do it anyway. And
yeah. And that's
then
the
I
other
feel it
that's the
later,
other
and
side of it. Yeah,
I know you've done that too. Um, I yeah, but those moments of inspiration when they do come,
yeah.
it's
Well,
a,
but
it's a
but
rare gift.
like what you were saying, though, I was just thinking about this because at this time last year, like, I was like really burnt out about music. Like, I'd been pushing myself really hard to get out. Like, I was not in good shape mentally for a number of other reasons, but I was really pushing myself hard to get out some releases. And, oh yeah, I put out the remix album, which was really big for me. I did all the art for that, and that actually was a physical release. So there was that thing, and I had my own race, and I got burnt out. And I end of December, I canceled. I had, like, some gigs. I canceled those, and I was going to release something, and I canceled.
Oh, wow. Okay,
And
that's
and yeah, everything was just, everything was shit.
and there's a
Like,
feeling.
nothing was coming together, and
How's
I
life?
was, ah. Oh. And
Not good.
no, and I'm like, and then for me, if I go for too long without playing, I get ornery. I just get cranky. And my
That's true. If
you
we
know
don't
my
do that,
yeah
yeah.
my wife will be like, "Are you okay? When was the last time you made music?" It was like 4 days ago. She's like, "Why don't you go and do that now?" Because and it's funny because I an artist friend of mine, when he's not painting, he gets edgy because he that's just like all where his head is at, and I feel the same way. But so this time last year, I was really like, I was just it was shit, and I would, it's a little different for you because you're a working musician and you have people that you work with and clients and whatnot. Uh, uh, but I was like, well, this is a period where I realized it was a period of, for me, it was kind of like breakdown breakthrough.
Mm,
Like I was getting that. Um, I have a quote on my computer, the monitor rim on my computer downstairs. It says, "Everything you want is on the other side of fear." Um,
mm,
and I knew that on the other side of where I was feeling in that moment, there was there was some great music to be had.
mm,
And interestingly, most every year I instead of a resolution, I think about something I want to work on in life and in music, and I don't even set it at the beginning of the year. It might take a few months to go in. And that year, I realized like 2024's 2024's motto, or rubric, whatever you want to call it, was get out of your own way.
mm,
And then when 2025 arrived, I realized it was keep getting out of your own way. You're still
mm,
in your own way. And I just sat down and I just had to wade through a lot of garbage
mm,
and a lot of garbage music. And I remember the quote, it's attributed to Churchill. It may or may not be true, but the quote is, when one is delivered a shit sandwich, it's best not to nibble. Um, the problem was I realized I had to nibble my way through this, and it was so frustrating. And I remember it took like 3 months
mm,
until I found whatever it was I'd been looking for. I couldn't even necessarily describe it to you, but I knew I'd arrived at like this new sound, and like I think, yeah, and I played some stuff for you and the Secret Cabal on Mastodon, and folks like, whoa, like that's new and different, and but it's funny too because I realized in some ways I'd already been on that track but didn't realize it.
mm. Yeah, you were already stewing in it
Yeah, and
while you felt like crap.
I think you'd probably agree that a lot of us musicians we're probably not aware that we're in the midst of this thing when we already are. Like,
Yeah. And there's hardly much external validation, so it's not like
yeah,
we can.
exactly. The
So
real,
you're
yeah,
left on your own
yeah.
to feel this way, and you're not going to know if it's good what you're doing
No, you really,
necessarily.
yeah. Well, it's interesting, and two, I've gotten more. I used to be very much like I wouldn't release anything unless my friend Jay, who's like my oldest friend, unless he liked it.
Mm,
And I would say 97% of the time. And if I disagreed with him, sometimes I'd release it anywhere. But he was right a lot of the time. But over the years, what I realized was, and that had only really been for like 10 years that I was like that. Over the years, what I realized is like I started to have a better sense of what was kind of working in a track for me from that kind of that awareness that he was sort of giving me, and what he was saying he did liked or didn't like.
mm,
I'm not saying I don't need him now, and whatever, but I was able to like have a I felt like my internal validation, and I'm not saying it's perfect. I feel like my internal validation is a teeny tiny bit more accurate most of the time, 75-60% of the time, than it has been.
Mm.
But but I still need that because, like, again, it's like, I just may not hear something. And I think, did we talk about this? Or, I can, I can tell, but I can also tell if a song doesn't work for me just by playing it with Alice in the room, or playing it for
Yeah,
somebody
you
else.
hear it through their ears. We talked about that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I think
quite hard to explain.
yeah, and I think that's what I think I call that. What's the word? I say that's, that's the quantum mechanics. That's the
It
divine.
really is.
The
Their consciousness
observation
is just like
effect. Yeah,
you can feel their hatred, or if they. I remember knowing something that I thought was bad was not as bad as I thought when playing it to someone who normally hated that music,
yeah,
and it's hard to explain that because my expectation was that they were not feeling it, but
yeah,
suddenly you feel lifted up and you realize the dynamics shifted in the room and they're actually digging the thing.
yeah, yeah. And for me, more and more, it's been a case of like, I'm really, I'm starting to learn not to judge myself as much along the way.
Yeah, you need to suspend that completely,
Yeah,
otherwise
and
nothing will happen.
right, it really gets in the way. And my good friend, um, Ramon Mills, who plays the name, Production Unit Zero out of uh, Oregon, out of Portland. He said to me, I was talking about this with him, and he said, "Oh, because I said I was trying to force the music and like force." He said, "Oh, you." He said he was very adamant. He's like, "You cannot put an agenda on creativity. It is the
Mm.
death of creativity." I was like, "Ah, you're so right." And,
Yeah, the
and I
best
was,
music is agendaless.
yeah,
That's when you can really get lost in a track or an artist's work where you don't feel like they came with some populist goal
yeah,
or the opposite. Anything like that. I maybe some people can work under those constraints, but I find it impossible to have judgment going on or goals,
no, yeah, I can't
apart
either.
from some sound goals or
Yeah,
yeah.
because and you really, I think about, it's interesting because someone might see, for instance, the condition of my bedroom, which I'm right now looking at, looks not unlike a scene from Hoarders after they've taken out the body. Um, but
No, it's good to me.
but but yep, the music, especially, when I'm working in Ableton, where I'm very precise, like I'm working down to very small levels of sound and the interactions of things, and I work down to a pretty minute level of getting things, just right and just so. Speaking of just right and just so, Henry has returned to
Ah,
grace us with a bone while we chat. Um,
good on Henry.
and but like, it reminds me of what it must have been like for and again, I'm not saying I'm at that level, but someone like Michelangelo, working in very precise detail, staring up at the Sistine Chapel, he wouldn't really see, you don't really see the full breadth of the work until you get down off of the scaffold and look up.
Mm.
And by the same token, for me now, the creative process is kind of just like, excuse me, is I work, I'll work on stuff and try to suspend my own judgment along the way. But at the same time, just hold back until I can present it to somebody else. And that's when I'm like, am I insane? Do you hear it? Or have I been taking acid every day for 3 weeks and thinking I'm okay? You
Yeah.
know, and that's, I gotta say, six times out of 10, people are like, "Oh my gosh, wow, that's great," and we should be so lucky. I rarely hear, have you thought about selling all the equipment and, you know, buying a kazoo? But, and it's really, I feel like I'm making myself sound more secure in my work than I am. I'm not. But
Well, it's
I
good you're enjoying it more, and
yeah,
you're,
I think
you're
it's
six
just,
out of ten secure now.
yeah, I have my insecurities, of course. I'm still ruled by the fact that there's never enough time. And, I feel like I'm going to die and, my work will be largely unrecognized. But, but on the other hand, I still got to make it.
Yeah, we can't help but make it. It's
Yeah,
true though about the other side of fear, that quote you said earlier. I know a few young producers who are really talented, and fear is the entire issue. It's not anything
yeah,
else except because they, unlike you just mentioned, they have time. The issue is that they're perceiving a judging audience while they're making
yeah.
the tracks, and
It's interesting, too. I wonder how
social
much of
media
that,
as well,
yeah,
you know.
Elvis Costello used to had a really great quote where he said, one of the problems with music companies is they give you 20 years to make your first album and, one to make the second. And
Mm,
granted, I think that's very different in this day and age, but it's a good point where, like, you're sort of expected to be like, okay, get working on the next thing. I think even more so though now in the internet day and age, and I'd be curious, like you probably know more from like working with the students and stuff that I can make it like I can make a track and I can send it to you and you'll instantaneously hear it, even though you're in London and I'm in America, in Maine, America.
mm.
Like you can get your music out to people that much quicker and that much faster than I mean, you know, back in my day, back in my 20s. But it was that type of thing where like I'd make a song, then I'd mix it down to a cassette. I'd have to like drive it over to a friend's house, or I'd get in the car and I'd play it, and they'd be like, "Oh God, I got to listen to But it really is kind of like it's very immediate. It's much more immediate now in that
Yeah,
way. And
I
and,
think
and
that affects it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny because and I Ryan, the proto son-in-law, makes really amazing music. I was very jealous because even though I had a lovely Christmas and my wife got me lovely gifts, his girlfriend, my daughter, Ryan's girlfriend, bought him a license for Serum. Which do I
Ooh, yeah,
do I
I
need
want
another
serum.
plugin? No,
I
but
want
it's
serum
Serum.
too.
Yeah,
Come on, yeah,
and
I
he's
want
been
that
doing
feeling.
amazing shit with it. And I've
I'm
been
not
listening,
surprised.
and it's funny because he came. I thought he was like a metal guy when he moved in with us, but because he plays guitar, but he also he did this amazing trap cover of what's YMO's famous song? Is it like ba 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 ba?
No, which
And
I'm playing them to the students.
yeah, yeah, it's like it's not Pong. I forget what it is, but anyway,
No, for Ideotech, what do you call it? Oh, my brain is not working.
yeah, I know
You know the
it's
one I mean. I
yeah.
can't.
But anyway, Ryan, so like he plays, he's making this music, and he said, what's I forget if he asked me for advice or something, and I said, honestly, I said the two things you can do the most are listen to a lot of different music, try not to listen judgmentally, and just experiment. Like
Mm,
make bad tracks.
mm.
Like that's a hard thing, and it's that's good writing advice I got from I think read from somewhere is it was Anne Lamott was like you know write shit. Your first draft of anything is going to be shit pretty much. It's not
Mm.
you know anybody who said someone like Baudelaire or Rimbaud said they wrote everything out in longhand, no corrections, with a with in purple ink with a feather quill pen, and I'm like bullshit. Like that's publisher build up bullshit. Like I just like experiment, like really just mess around and have fun.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's hard
because
to do that if you've grown up with social media and
yeah,
you're aware of the fact you can stream your life.
and you're aware of other. I mean, it's interesting. I do wonder what my musical journey would be like if I'd been born later. And
Mm.
now it's like, I mean, now I know when I see somebody, I'll see a clip of somebody playing online, and I'm like looking, I'm like, oh, what's the gear? What do they got there? And I'm like, oh, they suck, or oh my god, they're so good, I suck. And I can't imagine if I was younger what that would be like. On the
Yeah,
one hand,
it's a real. I mean, they're open about it too. A young guy called Oscar I speak to, who's very talented, is explicit that he has those voices and that feeling going on as he's
yeah,
trying to make music, and he has to work to get over it. So it's not like they don't know that they've got this creature on their shoulder developed over years of
yeah,
socializing online that is paralyzing because you can't experiment and make bad music if you can't do anything.
no, and it's like it goes back to what my friend Ramon said. You put an agenda on it, and it paralyzes and it cripples you, and
I
you
mean, we can
really,
do that already without. I'm not saying this hasn't been the case for humans forever, but definitely the technological environment we're in is not helpful. Because I didn't show tracks
no.
for years when I was a teenager. There was no one to really show them to.
I didn't share
That
my
was a good
music
thing.
with people largely for 10 years.
I remember you saying, but you weren't sure if they were even good, were you? That was
No,
the.
which is ridiculous because they're totally fine. I will say, one of my favorite things about Fela, and I'm no Fela Kuti, one of my favorite things about Fela Kuti is a guy is not afraid of a bum note in a song, and he was not afraid of putting a bum note in a record. And a lot of musicians are, but part of that was like you catch the full energy of the beauty of the performance. I I really wasn't as precise in a lot of my music. I'm talking about 20 years back, 30 years back even, as I am now.
Mm.
And or at least embracing and incorporating the mistakes. Um, like I remember someone said of a song of mine, he's like, "Oh, yeah, this again is 20 years ago." Oh, I really like this one track, how you have that dissonant there of those two notes. And I'm like, I went back and looked at the
That
MIDI
was a
file.
mistake.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't even know what key I was in, but I had E and E flat on top of each other. No wonder it sounded like, garbage. It wasn't even a tritone, it was just a bum note. And I've gotten much more precise and clean about stuff, but at least, in what I put out. But yeah, again, it goes back to that thing I was saying about getting out of your own way. It's so hard of that when you hear and you have voices of criticism of other people, and social media. You're presented with life is so great. And
Mm.
yesterday I saw a video. Not I oh yes the guy from Sonic State was touring BT's studio,
Oh, okay.
and
I
that
struggle with that guy. I like some of his. Yeah.
I respect because he's hardworking. I don't get the music, but he's there because he put his time in.
Mm.
Um, but seeing a studio like that,
Mm. I
and then
think
you're
he's got
like,
every synth ever made.
eh. It's like, how could you not feel like you're just pissing in the wind? You're not making anything that's worthwhile and valid. And it's so dumb because the some of the greatest music. It's like we are talking about, about finding a 303 in a pawn shop. Some of the greatest music comes from the simplest places
Mm.
and the simplest constructions, like be it electronic or blues or country. I was just thinking there's some reggae song I really love, and it's only one was put out, and it's by this guy who worked in sugar canes, and he basically built a sugarcane flute. And it sounds kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm just lowering this a little bit. It sounds like a clarinet,
Mm.
but it's not. It's like something you made out of flute, and that's like it's sort of like to me, it's like a lot of like outsider. It's like outsider art.
Mm.
It's just this person doing this, making this thing because he loves it. It's beautiful, and it's not pretty, and it's not polished.
Yeah, that
It's
disinterested, separate kind of world where
yeah,
you can sense the purity of intention, and I, I would hate to have to navigate all over again, and with that being threatened every day,
yeah. It's
that
I
would be
know.
hard.
Yeah, it would not be easy. Now, and I've said this. I said this to my daughter. I was like, if I was born in the age of social media, I would not have been. I would not have been intelligent about it. I'm sure
Yeah,
of
I
that.
wouldn't. I would have been I respect those young people because they're a lot cooler than I was or anyone I knew then
Yeah,
was. There's You've probably noticed that about people in their 20s and even teenagers, their level of intelligence and awareness. I know not everyone has this experience, but I'm regularly impressed. I regularly learn from them, and it makes it all the more obvious that the only one issue is what we're talking about.
yeah,
Is this fear?
yeah. And fear is such a big part of it. I mean, it's just so. I you know I've been in therapy regularly for the last 11 years, but I've been in therapy for a long time, and the more and more I look at it is realizing how fear has shaped my entire life.
Yeah, it's a horrible taskmaster, isn't
Not
it?
not ambition, not
No.
good looks, obviously to a certain degree, but
Definitely. You're looking very handsome today.
but but fear really, like, I will spend a lot of time sort of daydreaming about famous people and talking about their work and stuff, or something, or just talking to people. But I realize, like, like, for instance, like, I'm the same age as a lot of my favorite, the rappers of my day that I loved, like, Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim, and DMX and everything. And I'm like, I get down on myself. I'm like, well, these kids came out of really hard circumstances, much poorer than you, and they made music, and you were the same age. What the hell were you doing? And and you know, a part of it, a big part of it, I absorbed messages from people, things I was told by parents and stuff. I'm not going to blame them.
Mm,
Um, it's they're dead. They're not here to defend themselves. It'd be funny if my father was
appeared.
alive and got into the chat and was like, you were not the easiest kid, but, like, I did. I absorbed certain messages and I saw certain things, and I make something my therapist says is kids are great listeners but terrible interpreters.
Mm,
And it I never put together that, as much as I knew, like, my heroes musically were like, like Cabaret Voltaire, for instance, were not musically trained, but were still making out their music. I knew that, but at the same point, I felt like I was not up to that caliber, so I couldn't even begin to do that. Which, I'm not saying I'm Cabaret Voltaire, but what I'm saying is, like, you know, there's nothing stopping me from trying it and going out and doing that, other than being afraid and hearing the voice and the what do you call it, the I call it my home movies, the internal dialogue that
mm.
you're not good enough and you're not funny enough, and it's like,
Yeah, it's
and
such an unhelpful
I can
line of
confidently
reasoning,
say,
but it's
looking,
so present.
yeah, it's so present. I can confidently say that, looking back at a lot of people in my life, or people I know and don't know, like, I was, I had, I had the same tools in my toolkit that most other people did. You
Mm,
know, like, it's funny in talking with Sean, and if you're checking this out, Sean, A, don't you have more important things to do? But B, sorry I'm talking about you so much, but, like, talking with him, like, is really weird. The very close similarities in some ways in how we grew up, or what we were listening to and what we were exposed to, and that we'd kind of been, he and Robin mates for about the same time that my friend Jay and I have been friends. But the reason for doing stuff was going out and make music like they did and I didn't. Why not? And yeah, it was total fear, and I realized
Mm.
how that was, yeah, for me. I just realized, like, for me, that was the big thing when I had this car accident that really changed my life. I realized how much I'd been living in fear.
Mm.
And
Yeah, it takes a huge event to do that
I
sometimes.
used to say, I used to quote Kanye West before I thought he was, before discovering he was a fascist asshole who his enablers keep him off his medication. But like, I used to say, he said, my life is dope and I want it to be dope. I used to say that, and I realized was like, no, what I actually meant was I lived afraid too long of showing myself for who I am.
Mm.
And I literally spent 20 years. I mean, this might be too much psychology, but I spent 20 years trying to be somebody else, like a good child to my. I did the things I thought I should get a steady job and take care of my family and don't do music. It's like now I have plenty of friends who are musicians, who stayed musicians and had kids, and they did just fine. And
You didn't
so
die or
yeah, no,
Mm.
exactly. And but on the other hand, there's you know I
We're having
I
opposite regrets. I regret not getting a normal job and I could be more stable by now, and you'll regret.
but you know what? Here's and I hear that totally, but maybe it's because I'm coming from I come from a different obviously country, but background and upbringing, upground and backbringing.
Up,
That sounds
Upground. I'm writing that down,
yeah,
seriously.
upground and
That's a
backbringing.
good
That's
that's a
an
good
interesting,
album name.
yeah. But
Sorry, I'm just gonna type that
no,
down.
no, it's okay.
Upground.
What I
Up.
realized was my parents were. I joke that, like, there is nothing like being raised by a depression era baby, because you got certain viewpoints and things beaten into you that were beaten into you by you know beaten into them by a young parent, navigating the late 1920s and early 30s, for instance. My parents were very risk averse. They're
Mm,
wonderful people, very risk averse, but they also had a very healthy love of music and the arts. My grandfather was a wonderful musician, played guitar and piano. I think he could play almost anything he picked up, which was astounding. Um, but they were very risk averse, and they they felt that the only path in life was to get a good job in an office and make a living and support your family, which is not what they saw
mm,
in their life. It wasn't their parents, but it's what I think they saw in people they admired, you know, as successful. Like, I mean, for instance, my father's parents, my mother married my grandfather, and then the stock crash in 1929 happened, and all of a sudden her husband, who was a yacht broker, is out of work. Like, he had to scramble to get some, pretty, any kind of job to put money on the table. My grandfather on their side, great musician, an educator, a principal, a teacher. But my parents were like, nope, none of those things. You should be working in an office.
mm.
And I thought that was the way. The problem is, I'm me.
Yeah, that's
And
not office material
no,
necessarily.
it took me a long time to realize I can't do that. And I shouldn't have done it, but I did all these things because I love my parents and I thought it was the right thing. And now it's funny. Now it's interesting, just as a side, like, Alice's parents, um, a little older, second generation Italian, um, blue collar. her father worked in an office, right out of World War II. And they were very much to their daughters like, do whatever you want, like,
Mm.
but do it well and work hard. Both of them became dancers, and uh, Alice's sister became a teacher and was a wonderful teacher and stuff. So there's that, and what I've said to every single kid who will listen to me is follow your dreams. Don't be
Mm.
afraid, because you will find yourself in, X amount of years wondering what would have happened if you had done that thing.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but I mean, the funny thing is, I have an extraordinary amount of people in my life who are doing just that, and
Yeah.
some didn't finish college.
It's
Um,
annoying watching someone who isn't risk adverse flourish and exciting
yeah,
too, because I want that.
you're
It's funny,
torn.
you can be ambitious in your music, but in
Yeah,
everything else in life, super risk adverse. So
yeah,
what ends up happening is you sit around making music and you don't care what anyone thinks, and it's very different to what you're hearing and what other people around you like, maybe. But then when it comes to anything else, you
yeah,
completely shut down and don't do anything. So it just
yeah,
sits on a hard drive, and then
and
um,
and yeah. I mean, yeah, you're. It's just so.
actually, sorry, Charles, I just realized I meant
Yeah.
to do a call at 8, so that's
Are
a
we?
random place to stop. But
Do
we've
we have to go? That's good.
landed on a very positive note. Follow your dreams.
Follow your. Just fucking do it, man. Who cares? Like, the only thing that's going to happen is, unless it's like, Formula One or something, but like, the only thing that's going to happen is, you're going to fail. And like, you know, I've said, and I've also, I'll leave on this, I've said to people who are older, and, oh, well, I tried to make it work with a band, or I tried my writing. I'm like, you know, yeah, you put out only one album or maybe one book, but like, people remember that, like, you did it. And there's scads, boatloads of people who never tried to do anything,
Hmm.
and are in the what if. And so, give yourself some credit that you went and did this terrible, risky thing, because just, ending on this thing again, my parents, like, banks close, law firms close, businesses close. Like, who says working in a job is secure? I mean, not just,
Yeah.
now in the 21st century, but it never has been. I think my
Hmm.
father was always like that, because he was so lucky, because he got into the job market just as, like, a bunch of guys were retiring. Um, so he got in the early 50s and got into America's greatest booming economy. Um, Whereas his son, got in right at the end of the American experiment, wherever the hell that's going. So anyway, yeah, follow your dreams, kid. Don't buy a Korg SQ64.
Follow your gears, I heard you say.
Yeah,
So
follow
yeah,
your gears.
don't
Follow
buy
your
that
gears. Yeah.
thing.
But well, thanks for talking to me again, Robert. This is
No,
fantastic.
let's do it. This is therapy.
Yeah, this is good. And
But
happy New Year to everyone
Happy
in
New Year.
2026. And yeah, I think the next one we should actually maybe talk about our music or something.
Yeah, I'll try and listen to anything you've done.
Yeah, and I promise you, I will give up Art Graders and I will listen, because it's a new year, and I gotta put some stuff out, and it's coming out, and I gotta be able to say I knew him when. Um, but anyway,
Yeah, I'd like to know what you think of
yeah,
it, and
I
if you're able to write anything, I love the way you write. So
thank you, thank
I
you.
would offer the same back, but I'm terrible at reviewing music because also I have no platform and no voice for that. So I could do it for you if you want. If you
Yeah,
send me something, I'll write you a personal
I
review.
will. You're a fantastic writer, though. I really
Oh, I do
like
enjoy
listening to you
it.
write. Yeah, you're very good. So
In my crisis of wanting to give up music because it's so unstable, people say, well, have you tried writing? And I'm like, that'd be the same problem because you do the writing, but then convincing people to read it and getting it anywhere is the bit I hate, you
writers
know?
are just as insane as musicians. That's the thing. It's like, you
I
sit
want
there.
something.
You sit there alone in a room scribbling away, hoping that what you're doing isn't absolutely pointless garbage.
It's
Um,
all the same problems.
yeah, you're
I'm like,
trading
the
you're
issue isn't the
you're
making
trading a
of it.
pen for a keyboard. But anyway,
I
um,
better go to this other. It's
all
been
right,
lovely chatting to you, Mr. Charles.
Tally ho! It was good to see
Read
you.
that Xenakis book. I'll
Oh
have a
yeah,
look.
yeah, yeah. Send me that link. And to all the ships at sea and listening, thank you. I have been Charles Terhune, and this has been Robert Logan.
Goodbye.
Peace out.